to the campus, teachers are not allowed. Only officials come in between for certain works.
Okay.
And what we have done from March onwards, we transformed everything to digital platform.
Okay.
For example, taking classes, then assessments and all these activities, regular meeting and all these things, everything. We subscribe certain these video conferencing platforms, and from morning to late evening, many meets, many webinars, many all these things are happening. So
so how about the last semester of the engineering programs?
Last semester, yeah, we published the result already. We published the result because our system was that we had certain assessment through internal tests.
Okay.
And that process continued even in this lockdown period through the digital platform, because of all of our affiliated colleges, they were assigned with the responsibility to take the examination.
Okay.
So they did it, and at the end we took one examination again through the colleges. We did not do it centrally, right, this time.
Okay.
Because centrally means bringing all the students to the campus, and then there is of this mixing and handling papers and all these things, which we try to avoid all these things.
Okay.
So after that, and we compiled this marks and all these things and published the results.
So the last semester is completely over.
Yeah, complete. That last semester.
You have given them the transcripts and.
That is okay. That is everything is now available for the students.
Okay. So we couldn't do it as yet because our lockdown is not.
In your case, the internet connectivity is an issue there.
Then also we had a lockdown from the last August.
Right,
we had to actually compensate for that loss of academic.
Right. Kashmir is still problem is there. Still problem is there. No.
But unfortunately, what's happening is that some of our students have got admissions to IITs, and they need the certificates, the transcripts they need by 1st of September. And we are actually struggling to conduct their examinations and give them the transcripts.
How you are planning to take the examination?
We are planning by online only. Obviously.
That is the only route now.
Yeah, that's the only mode of examination that we can hold. And we are also considering for part of their assessment, the internal assessment, which has been going on for the last 7 semesters for them.
Right.
So we will collate all
for your situation is more difficult. I know that is the problem. Yeah. I know.
So I will be feeling very bad if I'm not able to give the result sheet to the students who got admission in IITs and other good institutions. And 6 of them have got to the integrated PhD admission in IIT Kanpur, Kharagpur, and Roorkee.
Right.
So I would be failing in my duty if I'm not able to give them the.
But there are many factors which is not in your hand. There are lots of external factors which are not in your hand. From your side, I know that you will be doing all sorts of things. But in Kashmir, the situation is like that. Everything you cannot this control.
Only yesterday, our LG, Lieutenant Governor, had wonderful meetings with people. By evening, he was no more there as a Lieutenant Governor. You might have seen that news. So he was removed.
Good morning, Bimala sir.
He was removed.
That's Kashmir.
Bimala sir has joined.
Yeah, Bimala.
শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
কেমন আছেন?
ভালো শুনতে পাচ্ছেন তো সব?
Yes.
Okay, ঠিক আছে. Okay.
Professor Bimal Rai, you know Professor Siddiqui, do you have any acquaintance with Professor Bimal Rai? He is a very famous professor of cryptography and from Indian Statistical Institute.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
And Professor Siddiqui is the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Islamic University of Science and Technology of Kashmir.
Hello, Professor Roy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Professor Siddiqui is a very noted scholar, and
thank you.
Always it's a pleasure to talk to you, Professor Siddiqui. I can tell.
Thank you for compliments.
Sir, should we start now or we'll wait? Sir, should we start now or we will wait?
No, that's check about Dr. Christian about us. He is facing certain problems probably.
Yes, I cannot, I don't know how to share my PDF. So
Your screen sharing. Can you
yes.
from our technical support, Prem Kumar can guide her how to share the screen?
Yes, sir. So, Krishna ma'am, you
Yes.
just click on the share screen option, but
Yes.
before that, you just open the PDF file in the browser or in the Adobe Reader.
Oh,
You
okay,
first
okay.
open the PDF file.
Okay, so I open it in the browser.
Yes, it is open PDF file.
Well, it's open, like it's a PDF, so it's open.
Yes.
But
Now
then I
you
don't
just go to the Zoom platform and you click on the
okay.
share screen option.
Yes, and then what do I choose? There's
You
three
will
options.
find that
share screen. Share
file.
screen.
Yeah, this one I found it, but then there is
After
I
that,
can choose
in
from
the
basic.
right bottom, there is share button. You have to click on that, ma'am. After selecting
Okay.
the PDF application.
Okay. Oh, so okay, so it's not what.
Otherwise, Kristania, you can share the files. You can.
No, that's not a difficult thing. I think share screen option.
Yeah,
You go there.
I know, but I don't find the
You'll
file.
see all the files there. You will see all the files and click the files and share.
I know I used Zoom before, but it doesn't show my files. That's the problem. So I go to basic.
Okay. Then you do one thing. You do one thing. You send the PDF by email to Dr. Giri. So we will run it from our side. So
okay. Okay. Thank you. So if I don't find how to do it, we will do this. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
We are very happy that you have joined us. That's a great thing.
I'm very happy too. Thank you very much.
I think Dr. Christiana can start later. First, we could start with Dr. Bimal, Professor Bimal Rai. In that case,
sir, let us will start, sir, inaugural session.
Let us start this program. Let us start lesson from Professor Siddiqui. Then we start the program. Professor Siddiqui is our honorable this guest, and not only guest and host also, because this is a joint program. So we invite him to share his views. Your mic is.
Siddiqui sir, please unmute your mic.
Unmute your mic, sir.
Okay. Now, I think I should thank Professor Moitra to give me this opportunity to share at least some thoughts on cybersecurity, cryptography with expert panels. I'm not an expert on the field, but still I have some popular thoughts which are in any common citizen who has been using the technology for the last 30 years. And I'm one who has been using the technology since 1981 when I was in Tokyo. The first time I saw the computer, and the first time I saw a computer which was, occupying the space of something like half a room. And there were no hard disks. There were, the floppy drives, and there were the data drives. So we had those floppy drives in those very thin and fragile, and then came so since that time I've been using the technology. So I will only use as a popular, what are the popular issues about the cybersecurity as a common man. Therefore, I will talk briefly for 5 minutes. So information technology is one of the most volatile spheres of today's world. Every day, new updates are being developed with the aim of making tasks easier and more enjoyable. IT is continuously influencing all spheres of life as well as professions. From commerce to law, from business to science, from healthcare to agriculture, every field has been a beneficiary of the advancement of information technology. Even though today's age of information technology has brought innumerable opportunities, at the same time, it has thrown up greater challenges to make these IT structures secure, and thus network security, cybersecurity, information security have become a common buzzword with common citizens like me. So there are a lot of advancements in artificial intelligence, IoTs, quantum computing, blockchain technology, which have a lot of promise in actually looking at the challenges that are being faced by the common man. The advancement of the quantum computing should make the current encryption algorithms useful for practical purpose, and we have to innovate new brand encryption algorithms. So the quantum computing, on which we had a lot of hopes, is almost starting showing the weaknesses. The cyber attacks in the form of malware, including viruses, trojans, spyware, ransomware, SQL injection, phishing, and denial of service attacks are becoming common. If we remember the ransom attacks launched previous year, the ransom attackers encrypt the files in victim's computer and mobile, and files were decrypted only when the victim gives the ransom amount. The ransom attack has caused a loss of billions of dollars in just few years, which have gone by. We just had a lot of examples which are available to the common man. British Airways was completely hacked, and there were no flights for 6 days all over the world of the British Airways. So all of us use net banking, credit cards, debit cards, which again has brought banking literally to our fingerprints. However, again, security concerns are coming to the customers. Few days there was a news that in India alone, more than 20,000 cases of online banking fraud amounting to a loss of 100 crores was reported in just 3 months, and it appeared in the newspaper Hindu, which I was also reading and everybody else was reading. Although I personally have not been a victim of a bank fraud till date, but you cannot become an exception every time. So you will become a rule. So artificial intelligence and machine learning have disrupted every industry owing to its ability to create a significant impact on marketing, services, manufacturing, security, supply chain management, and other fields. However, artificial intelligence is proving to be a boon for cyber criminals too. So artificial intelligence capabilities are used by hackers to launch sophisticated cyber attacks in the form of complex and adaptive malicious software. So videos are used by cyber criminals to spread illicit information or fake news. Earlier, it was said that camera never lies. However, fake videos of Barack Obama created, which was by using deep learning technology in 2018, proved it wrong. So even videos where, we had the fake videos of personalities like Obama. So privacy is another issue of a sensitive nature in the current century. And the fact that technical companies hold our sensitive data increases the anxieties of the common man manifold. Actually, it actually increases my worries too. Because I'm possibly many a times when I open a mail or I open the dashboard of my computer, I'm always worried if somebody is watching at me. So privacy issues have become really of very high sensitive nature to the common man. So multinational companies, as well as autocratic and rogue governments, they can exploit our data in a multitude of ways. We saw how sensitive data was compromised in Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal. That was very recently, we had a feel of it. The effect of whose are believed to have been reaped by not only different companies, by political parties around the world, which we call the white hacking. Usually, I think the experts know it. There are black hackers, there are white hackers, and there are gray hackers. And I will be always worried about also the white hackers, because white hacking also makes the common man's life miserable and is not entitled to privacy. So we might have heard a place in Jharkhand called Jamtara. It's also called as phishing capital of India. A large number of phishing attacks emanate from there, where scammers would call innocent people and extract vital information from them, and then using that information like ATM PIN codes, online banking passwords, and OTPs, they rob them of money. The point to be noted here is that they do not fancy technical stuff. Rather, they exploit the naivety of the common people to extract vital information. So this is a different issue, but still it comes under the cybersecurity. So there are many aspects of the data and network security which we need to focus upon. And if the attacks, such as the ones I mentioned, teach us anything, it is the fact that it's a game between attacker and the us. And we need to be always one step ahead of the attacker. So at the same time, we need to educate people about the vulnerabilities upon which the scammers poach upon. We still have a very, very fresh memory of the Capital One breach, which led to 108 million attacking cyber attacks. With the scale of cyber threats set to continue to rise, International Data Corporation predicts the worldwide spending on cybersecurity solutions will reach a massive $133 billion by just 2 years from now. So in this context, I think the workshop is going to be very helpful to us to understand the need and deliberate upon the solutions to the problem of cybersecurity using new algorithms under the cryptography. I once again thank the organizers to have given me opportunity to talk on the issue for a short time. And I hope I will be continuing to listen to the expert lectures by Professor Roy, the lady guest from I think Sweden, if I'm right. So therefore, I will be looking forward to listening to the expert lectures in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech, sir. So now I request to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to share your views to the gathering, sir.
Okay. Who is the first speaker, Dr. Baura or Professor Roy?
Professor Bimal Rai is the first speaker, sir.
Okay. So thank you, because why I'm saying so, you have to wait for a few more minutes to complete all the formalities before starting this session. It's a nice thing that today we have two eminent speakers amongst us, Professor Bimal Rai and Dr. Christian Baura, who will be delivering talks on cybersecurity, cryptography, and network security. And today, it is also important as we are organizing this webinar in association with the Islamic University of Science and Technology. So it's a joint endeavor, and this will be benefiting the participants from our university systems, MAKAUT, and as well as this IUST university system. Now, Professor Siddiqui already highlighted many important aspects of these subjects, and I also fully agree with him. And few, as a the customary measures, I would like to say a few words. In near future, in future, and also in present time, what we are observing, everything is happening in digital platform, and be it production systems, manufacturing systems, be it financial systems, be it education, everything is getting transformed to digital platforms, and data is going to be the one of the important component of each and every organization. It is being said that data is to be considered as fuel or energy for each and every organizations, and because of this increasing importance of data. And this is also this data, as it is going to be a very precious commodity for each and every organizations and for each and every individual. So it has to be preserved and protected in a secured manner. That's why this importance of cybersecurity, network security, and all these things, these are emerging and getting more and more this attention in the knowledge community. Because of these facts, lots of problems are there. As the technology is moving, there are certain parts which is called aberration, and many people are trying to take advantage of the technology to use it in a wrongful manner, and that's why we have to develop parallel systems to impose the security measurements in a better way. And therefore, it's not only the subject for a selected group of professionals, it has become one of the important component for each technical persons, because when we will be doing some things, we have to know how to protect our all these things, how to secure, how to make our all this data and information more secure, so that no one can do anything wrong with it. So this is one of the important subjects. So basically, as there is an emergence of a particular focused research area in cybersecurity, network security, cryptography. Professor Roy, I know personally, he has done lots of research work in that area. But what I feel that from all the professional branches, people should know at least the basic things of the cybersecurity. So that whenever all these practices, all these technical practices will be carried out, so that component of this network security, cyber security, data security, everything that should be imbibed with all these activities. This is for that purpose my personal request to each and every participant. If you may be a professional of cybersecurity, you may not be, but the importance is always there. And in near future, what we are observing, machine learning, data science, cybersecurity are going to be very important professions in terms of employment generation in country like India, in other parts of the world as well. So it is going to be a very important thrust area of research activities in information science and technology, and in all and for different branches of professionals, they can also take part in pursuing different knowledge exercises in this area. And we need to generate and develop more and more practical solution how to combat with all these cyber threats and the data vulnerability and information insecurity. So with this, I wish a grand success for this webinar series, and I believe that all the participants, they will be immensely benefited. Here we have done a significant development or significant changes in our webinar pattern, in the form that there is a discussion forum, and that discussion forum is what developed with the idea that all these participants, they will get the opportunity to interact among themselves as well as with the resource persons to make this learning process more sustainable. This is one thing. Second is, there will be a chance of appearing at a quiz to test the level of understanding of all the participants, and after that they can get the certificates. So we are trying to make it an active or effective learning process for all the participants. I wish them a happy learning, and my sincerest thanks goes to Professor Bimal Rai, Dr. Baura, and of course Professor Siddiqui, my colleague from this IUST. So with this, I would like to conclude, and I'm requesting Dr. Giri to take this session further.
Thank you so much for your valuable speech, sir. So today we are having the three speakers: Professor Bimal Rai, head of RC Bose Center of Cryptology and Security, ISI Calcutta, former director of ISI, and another speaker is Dr. P.K. Saxena, scientific consultant cybersecurity, and he is the former director of the DRDO, Delhi, India. And another speaker is Dr. Kristania Bora. He is from Versailles University from France. Now, our first speaker is Professor Bimal Rai. He is head of RC Bose Center for Cryptology and Security, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, and he is the former director of ISI, and he is the founder and general secretary, Cryptology Research Society of India. He has received different awards and honors: Padma Shri Award, Government of India in 2015, Teachers Award from Indian National Science Academy 2014, and so many awards he have received. His area of interest is community reach, applications of statistics in cryptology, and design of experiments. And his talk is the current issues in cryptology. Now I request to Bimal Rai sir, please start your presentation.
Thank you, Devashish. Thanks to Professor Siddiqui, Shaikot, and other organizers. And hello to the other speakers, Christina, and also Dr. Saxena. I think she's not there, my old-time friend. This is an opportunity, to get close to the students, which I would have liked to get physically close to them. And I'll just probably first talk a few offbeat things, and then I come to the main context. That we are forced to do this non-physical interaction, in which I'm having very much difficulty, because when I speak, the others have listened to me. I do prepare a speech, and normally I proceed and look at the attendees and look at their eyes, faces, and try to use my own machine learning algorithm at the back of my head to see are the audience with me or not with me. Accordingly, I tweak my talk, go higher or lower, fast or slow, all these things. But now this is not possible here. So I have to go for a fixed talk, and I'll try to probably pose 2-3 issues, current issues, given my time frame 45 minutes, which are very relevant in today's thing, and students should know. And I'm assuming that the audience is aware of the basic ideas of cryptography, encryption, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, this talk will be finished. Mostly I can assume that they have the basic idea of what is the encryption, what is decryption, what is signature, and stuff like that. Okay, before I, the first thing that I would like to talk about is that also I have been appointed about a year back the chairman of the National Statistical Commission. I'm supposed to be the custodian of pretty much all the Indian government data. And I was having a chat with our Honorable Prime Minister, and I told Modi ji that the data which doesn't relate to the national security, why don't make it public? In the public, we'll put it in the public domain. And Modi ji is very smart. He immediately asked me, so privacy ka kya hua? There are privacy issues, there are some privacy we are guaranteed by our constitution. So we cannot publish. Something like we cannot publish if you are a defaulter from a bank, and I think you can publish your name on a public domain. This really gets into your privacy act. Then I said, okay, so let me try to work out a methodology to publish all the government data in the public domain, where two things will be observed. We have to anonymize it, meaning that if there is a record, you don't know whose information is there in the record. This is called anonymization. And the other part is obfuscation. Even the data that we put, we don't put into the exact form, but we tweak it a little bit, so that from the published data, getting the original data is something like a very difficult task, but the properties of data is not really lost. There's a lot of information in the data. So we actually formed a national level committee to look into these issues and give a report. We got the report also. And now I have to take it up now that it's not in physical domain.
Hello, Bimal sir. Hello. Sorry for the interruption, sir. Sir, there is some noise coming from background. Some beep sound is coming, sir.
I think lots of rain outside. I can't help it. It's heavy rain here. I'm in my office, and outside my window it's a heavy rain.
It is raindrops, sound of raindrops.
Yeah, so I can't help it. I can stop it. If it is man-made, I could have stopped it. So probably if the rain slows down, things will be better. Okay, so we have actually formed a committee, and it gave a report that how to gainfully anonymize and obfuscate the data, all government data, which doesn't affect national security, and put in the public domain. So you see, hopefully in a year or so, you may get all the data in the public domain. And I'll tell you what I mean by this. So I like to give this story, tell a story, and what is meant by this anonymization and obfuscation. This is a very important current issue in our domain of crypto and security. So let me give you this story, which I actually did some time back. And that time I didn't quite use cryptology, but now it is very relevant. My training was at ISI in statistics. So I learned a lot of statistical techniques, but little I knew that it could be so highly used in a real practical domain. So this is about, so you have to mind my language a little bit because the language might sometimes be a little weird. So sometime back, some time back, I was made the warden of the ISI hostel. Okay, there are 100 students, and one of the rules there is that you cannot drink alcohol in the hostel. Now we have a new rule that you cannot even smoke in the hostel. In our time it was not the rule, you could smoke, but you could not drink alcohol. So one day, the student comes and tells me, Vimalda, investor used to call me, Vimalda, there are serious issues. The boys and girls in the hostel are drinking alcohol. Now, it's not that I really personally care too much, but when you are in the administration and there is a rule, you have to see that these rules are obeyed, you like it or not. So I do something. The first thing that I wanted to know, or get an idea about, what percentage of my students are into this habit. If I recall my time in the hostel, even then some 10-12% students will have that habit. So because you remember in the hostel, some students will be having that habit. So in my time, I could recollect we are 28 in the class, and 3 of us have had, 3 of them have had this habit. And it looks like some 10-12% was there in my time also. I asked my father, when you have gone to college in the hostel, and it's 10%, 10% the hobby. 10% students have that habit. Like it or not, that's the human nature. We have this information. Now, so first thing I wanted to see whether the percentage has gone up significantly or it's around that only. If it's around that, I don't have to care. You leave it as a error in the system. But if it goes to 30-40%, I have to care. So I have to get this information. What percentage of my students do have this habit, or this bad habit, or illegal habit? But the best way would have been if I ask my question, say girl, I told Indani, do you drink alcohol in the hostel? Now, how does she going to react? Number one, she may get very angry. If she is more polite, she may say, these are the things, they're very private things, I don't want to discuss with you. Third option, she's very polite, she answers this one. And now, what is the chance that she will be telling a truth? Okay, very on the surface. So, asking this information from the student is going to be of no use. Okay, if I won't get the information, or the information will not be applicable. But then you are stopped? No. I was trying to apply some statistical technique, which is going to be the main tool in the government policy. So it will go a long way, but you get the essence from this story. How we are going to do it. Again, remember, I have got 2 notions. One is anonymization and one is obfuscation. For the anonymization, nobody should know whose data this one is. The obfuscation from the data, the property of the data will remain, but nobody can actually dig out the actual data from the publisher. Okay, so it will be very clear from the example. So I tell the student, I know that this is a very private affair, so you are not going to cooperate with me, which is perfectly all right. I would have done the same. But let me put 2 questions. My question 1 is, do you drink alcohol in the hostel? Answer is yes or no. Number 2. Question number 3. Are you born between January 1 and June 30? Very nice question, but that is my strength. Are you born between January 1 and June 30? Again, the answer is yes or no. And then I tell the student, you take a coin, okay, and toss it. If it is head, you answer the first question. If it is tail, you answer the second question. Okay, and you don't tell anybody what is the outcome of it. And then write the answer yes or no in capital There is just one letter, Y or N in capital on a piece of paper. Fold it, and I put a box, and in the box, you just put the answer in the folded piece of paper. Okay? So, what I am getting as information, a bunch of paper pieces within Y or N inside, and these are folded into the box. Okay, now, two things. Did I anonymize? Because can I understand from one slip who has answered it? So the only way I can identify the person is if I could identify the handwriting of the person from just one single capital letter. Now that you must agree that it's almost impossible. So just if any of you write Y or N, no matter even if I know your handwriting style, handwriting everything, from one capital letter, I cannot really get any idea of who has written it. So just on the piece of paper, looking at Y or N, I do not understand who has written it. So this is what I mean by anonymization. And number two, you have written an answer yes or no. And it's related to what is your actual habit, but I don't know the outcome of your thought. Okay, so I don't know whether you actually drink alcohol or not, because I don't know which question you answer. So this is what I call obfuscation. From what you are writing, your data, I cannot get an idea of what your actual value is. Okay, so by this method, I have completely anonymized, not obfuscated the information. Okay, so I explain the student, and they agree to play this game with me fairly. If they play an unfair game, I cannot do anything. But since they are assured of anonymity and also the, I would say the data is sufficiently obfuscated, then they have no reason not to participate, so all the students agree to participate. So I got at the end of this game or experiment in the box, let me just put a nice numbers for my calculation I am doing by mouth. So I got 400 with 134 yes, y. Okay, now let me see how do I calculate. So remember, 400 students participated in the game, and I got 134 yes. Okay, now let me just go back to my my game. So if it is 8, you have answered question 1. If it is 12, they have answered question 2. And what question 2? Very nice, very simple, but it's very informative to me. Are you born between January 1 and so 8 first question, 12 second question. So out of 400, about 200 will answer the first question, and about 200 will answer the second question, assuming that the coin is unbiased. Let me finish answering this. Although I don't know how to make an unbiased coin. I don't know if there exists any unbiased coin. But assuming that the coin is born with unbiased, so 200 for the first question, 1 for the second question. So look at the second question. Of the 200, how many would answer yes? Are you born between January 1 and June 30? They would say just half the year. If I assume that the birth gets equally or uniformly over the year, then out of these 200 who answered second question, half of them, roughly 100 of them would answer yes. Okay? So out of this 134 yes, 100 has come from the second question. So the remaining 34 must have come from the first question. And again, 200 of them answered the first question, 34 of them answered yes. So simple calculation, 17% of my students to take alcohol. So I have done a fine computation. This is what I want to know. Okay, the students take the game fairly with me. I have ensured elimination, I have ensured obfuscation, and I have done my computation. 70%. The rest of the story is very simple. I didn't think 17% was significantly higher compared to my statement in my end, so I did not take any disciplinary action in the story. So this gives you a glimpse. Hello, Mr. Sachana. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay.
Hello. How are you?
Good to see you. Okay, so let me continue to take off. So,
Sir,
what I mean by we have to go a long way, but the whole idea of anonymization and obfuscation. So, if the committed report comes into practice, and then you see in a year or two all the public government data on public domain. Okay, and you can do lot of computations, lot of information you can compute, and who allow that. So it again depend on what are the things you are allowing people to compute, and accordingly it has to be offered. Okay, so this is my first one. This is my one of the very relevant information. The second one is this has been a very hot topic, the electronic voting machine. Now, if you remember correctly, anybody loses the election, they complain that we have to go back to manual voting. The EVMs are no good. You can do fraud with the EVMs very easily. Okay, and in fact, I remember being KGYG, he's also an IIT Kanpur engineer, made a complaint that he thinks that after election is over and before the counting starts, these machines are in the custody of the election commission, and he thinks election commissions are and the government are pretty much money, so they can change the number. Okay? They can change the number. So he instructs this machine. I remember election commission through an open challenge to everybody, all the political parties, but they don't allow the machine to open. So they won't give us the circuit. And then Arvind Kejriwal told that unless I get the circuit diagram, there's no point I can do any analysis. So they came out. So nobody, and the government said that nobody accepted our challenge. But the issue is that it's not the not actually challenge, you want to the circuit, which is not even good. So now what I'm trying to see is the election process. Let me see what are the process in the election. First, my name is registered as a voter. Okay, so the election commission is registered my name as a voter, and there they normally put my signature or thumb impression and my photo. Okay, and then I go to vote. So I have to prove to the polling officer that I am that person, that so. So what does the polling officer do? He looks at me physically and looks at the voter ID card photograph. And if you have any experience, you know how horrible these pictures are in the voter ID card. And he tries to see that these two are the same person. Second thing, he will also double check. He'll ask us to sign, or he will ask me to put a thumb impression, which is there in the record. Now, signature forging is not very difficult. You just forging. But even though I agree that signature is a good thing to verify, so my signature and his signature, the signature stored with the election commission, they tally. But if you put a thumb impression, I don't know anybody unless you have an expert of this biometry with your all tools and software tools. One can say that these two are from the same person. But the polling officer does an impossible task. You look at the, so he doesn't do it. So the verification of this voter in our system, I would say, is extremely weak. The photos normally are horrible on the card, and the signatures or the communication are not really properly verified. So the first thing is that, so impersonation is possible, and I know from my experience that impersonation do take place. Somebody voting for somebody else. It's not very uncommon in India. It's not a good practice. I don't say proud of it, but this is the truth. So the second thing, you vote. So what you do? You just press a button, a particular person or symbol, and then what the machine does, they have the CVPAT machine. So they will print out the symbol where you voted and show you the physical printout. And if you are happy, then they talk it about. Okay, so this goes. And then the vote is actually stored in some form in that EVM machine. Now I was talking to high school kids, and I told them, is it possible that you input your vote, the output comes as a printout on a piece of paper, but something else is stored in the machine. And the high school student says that's very trivial, so you can design it like this. So I'm not telling that police is actually. I'm telling that these are fraudulent, but I think there is a responsibility from time the part of the government to prove our side that my vote is actually recorded correctly. Number 3 is what is Arvind Kejriwal's concern. That after I vote, it is stored in the machine. The polling is over, and before the counting starts, would there be some manifold operation going on in the memory of the machine and the vote change? Okay, so we have a responsibility to ensure the counting that the vote as it was trusted, these are only being counted. Okay, so this is what is to be given a proof of what the people are happy that my vote is actually counted. Nothing has altered in this case because there are lots of things. Okay, the next thing, which I think is happening in India, every CTS actually takes vote from a small community. Okay, maybe hamlet or para in a village or a housing estate and so on. I know in the housing estate where I live, all of them voted for one vote. Now vote is typically 1,000 votes. Now because EVMs are counted, so everyone knows how this particular small community voted. Okay, and I think this is better right. I give an example. One of my colleagues lives in a housing complex, and all of them voted in one EVM, and the vote did not go in favor of the ruling party. But overall, the ruling party members became MLA, and they had some water problem, and they went to their local MLA, and he said, "Did you vote for me? That I will work for you." I think there is a bit of privacy here. So MLA had no business to know how this small group voted. So this is I was not doing the individual level, I was at small community level. Now this is what is not really a nice thing to happen. So what I want so if you have some 200 EVMs for one constituency, I want a mechanism, some app or some mechanism there, where I can compute the sum and give a proof that I am computing the sum correctly without revealing any of the single values in execution. So if it is A, B, C, D, blah, 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 this app or this small software will give me it like this, blah, 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 without revealing any of this A, B, C, D. And it's a proof that I'm doing the sum correctly. Okay, so this is a complexity. Now, what are the things which could be employed to meet our concern? First, let me go to the easiest part. Easiest part is, which I think the easiest part, to prove that the vote I casted did not change the memory, and the votes, those votes are counted. So no unfair means have been adopted to the memory of the people. Okay. So how do we ensure that there have been, I can talk about very simple things, it is talk of blockchain. Okay, it's supposed to be very high in technology. It's becoming popular for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but I could use this blockchain. port in a blockchain. Rather than overhead, the machine has to have more memory, has to overhead there, and I can put the port in a blockchain, and what the blockchain ensures is immutable. That means you cannot change any data in a blockchain. If you do, it will be immediately triggered. So if you can afford this additional overhead, which is not really much, we have done experiment also, then you vote, the vote goes into the blockchain. And this could be actually publicly verified as blockchain. And people can verify. So people may not know who is voting for whom, but people would know that the correct votes are actually being counted. So I would probably propose a publicly verifiable blockchain for storing this data, which will have an overhead cost on top of this visualization structure. But that is going to ensure my integrity, and it will take to meet the concerns of Arvind Kejriwal. The other TM, the last TM is probably easier to handle because there is a very popular subject these days in the crypto domain, multi-party computation. Okay, the MPC. So I could use many of the standard MPC algorithms for summing up the votes across the machine without revealing any of the individual votes. Now, for the ordinary students, I give an idea how do you do it. It's very simple. I give you again a small example. Suppose I have got two machines. Okay, this machine has got A, this machine has got B, and I want to compute A plus B. But I want to prove that nobody would know what is A and what is B, but A plus B is computed correctly. So I'll tell a very, very simple mechanism for that. What I'll do, at the counting phase, I'll generate a random number. Okay, random number. And then send it to, input it to both the machines. Say R. So in the first machine, I'll add R to it. I'll add R to it. The second machine I'll subtract R from it. Okay, so the first machine will output A plus R. So I generate R, send it to two machines. First machine will compute A plus R, send it back to me. The second machine will compute B minus R, send it back to me. So I get A plus R and B minus R. I add them. So R cancels, so I get A plus B. So there is no notion of any confusion about the proof. So I'm actually completing that. Now what is meant by that? Nobody would know A and B because they are very simple. At the very first year level we did, a random number has no information, and the fixed number of random number also is random number. So R is random. So if I generate R randomly, hopefully randomly, then A plus R is also random. So A plus R has no information. So getting any idea about A is impossible. B minus R is another random number. Again, I have no idea of B from this B minus R.
Hello.
You will present the slide.
Minus R.
Yeah.
No information about A and B.
You
So
have to
this
share from your screen.
that is
Otherwise,
Yes.
then we will share from our screen.
this computation.
So then I will start and I will share the screen.
No, I have no way.
You will give
Can you just mute it?
Yeah. I will share the screen.
So this is a kind of proof, but this is a toy example, but we can actually use the MPC algorithm to make it for any number of machines, any number of candidates. Okay, now comes the other part. How do I prove myself? Or how does the machine prove that it has stored myself? Okay, so these are the most important things which remain unanswered for quite some time. But we have still working on something called, which I tell you now, it's one of the current issues in cryptography, zero knowledge protocol. Zero knowledge, absolutely no knowledge protocol. So what is that again? This I need a whole to a lecture to explain what is going on the proof, but I'll probably give the idea in one simple example. I hope you know the game Sudoku. So this is the kids know the game Sudoku. So what is the game? For those who don't know the game, let me explain the game. The newspaper you will see there is a Sudoku game. It gives a 9 by 9 square. So 9 rows, 9 columns. There are 81 small squares or cells in the square. Now they'll put some numbers somewhere. Numbers between 1 and 9. I'll use the only numbers between 1 to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they'll put somewhere 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, something like that. They'll just fill up partially that square. And then your challenge is you have to fill up the rest of the cells again with 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9 in such a way that after you fill up, each row will have all the 9 digits. Each column will have all the 9 digits. Also, each sub-square, if you think of the 9 by 9 square, there are 1 3 by 3, the next 3 by 3, next 3 by 3, another 3 by 3, another 3 by 3, another 3 by 3, plus 3 by 3, 3 by 3, 3 by 3, 9 sub-square, each of size 3 by 3. If you look into any sub-square, the 9 places, and you must find all the 9 digits, 1 to 9, exactly 1. So you have to, the game is that given some numbers on some cells, you have to fill up the rest with digits from 1 to 9 in such a way that each row, each column, and each sub-square will have all the 9 digits. That's it. So now, suppose Dr. Satyana plays the game, and he claims that I have solved the problem. And then I won't hear it. But I say, no, Dr. Satyana, I know you cannot solve it. Out of question, beyond that part. So the best way he can show that he has solved it, he can give me the solution. Then I can verify. Very easy. But he doesn't want to give me the solution. He doesn't want to show me the solution. He doesn't want me to know. He doesn't any knowledge about the solution. But he wants to prove to me that he has solved it. He wants to convince me that he has solved this solution. Okay. So I have zero knowledge about the solution, no knowledge, but yet I will be convinced that Dr. Satyana has solved the problem, and I am not going to make a statement like he is not smart, he cannot solve the problem. I am absolutely sure that he is capable of solving this problem. Now how do I do this? Now, this is what is called zero-knowledge protocol, and I'll come to a solution, but then how do you use it in the machine? Again, same thing, machine without divulging the information can prove to me that it has recorded my code. Okay? So this is what I want to make sure that the machine is recording my code. And my code will be kept with integrity and putting the code into the blockchain. And then if I use multiple computation, then I know that individual PCM votes are not using, only a sum is using. So that gives me what I call end-to-end verifiable electronic voting system. So now how do I do that? I go back to this Sudoku problem. So what Dr. Satyana does, he is very smart. So he will prepare 81 small slips. And 9 of them he writes 1 on one side. 9 of them he writes 2. 9 of them he writes 9 on one side. And then he covers this solution with this slip. In a way that if a cell has got 3, he will cover it up with 3. So on the top you won't see the number 3, but inside it is 3. So each cell, whatever the number is there, but the Satyana will cover it up with the same number. So people cannot see from the top what is the number there, but if you just flip it, you will see that the same number is there. So you just cover it up with small. And then you ask me, okay, Vimal, you pick up any column. So I pick up column number 7. And then what you do, you pick up the slips from the 9 slips from the 7th column. 9 slips will pick up. Okay, you don't pick it up just to one time. You will randomize. Okay, in your hand, and then flip all the papers and put it before me. And all I have to verify that it has got all the 9 digits. Okay. And so now you tell me a row, type a third row. So what you will do? You will pick up the keys from the third row, randomize it, you mix it up, and then flip it and show it to me. And all I have to verify it has got all the 9 digits. Then you will say, you pick up a subsquare. Say I pick up the second row, the third subsquare. So there are 9 small cells, and what he will do, he'll pick up those 9 keys. Okay, again in hand, slowly, randomly. All I have to do. Oh, mute. Please, others mute, please. Okay, so all I have to verify is that has got all the 9 digits in those 9 cells in the substance. And says, okay, Bimal, if you are not happy, tell me another row or another column. Please throw challenge to me, and if I say anything, please satisfy. So by this, when I'm satisfied, I know that we have solved the problem. Do I gain any knowledge about the problem? Solution? No. I don't know about the solution at all. But I'm convinced that we have solved the problem. So this is what is called zero knowledge protocol, zero knowledge proof, and this is going to become extremely, extremely important in days to come. It's going to prove something because I am actually will be using more into the cyber domain. How do I prove my identity? You know, I'll tell you about a simple zero knowledge protocol which we use. You know, they ask maybe take the company, they will ask, what is your favorite flower? What is your favorite color? And so on and so forth. Favorite subject. Okay? And then they will verify over phone call. A reminder that calls are tagged. So just by this information, the color of the favorite color is red or the favorite flower is lotus. Nobody can guess that this is you. It's a very weak protocol, but there's a proof behind it. This is an intuition, but this is going to be very, very important to identity management, proving something where nobody else would give any knowledge, but everyone will be convinced that, that you are the person, this is the solution, and so on and so forth. So this is what we are going to employ. Supposing employing electronic voting machine. If you do that, I don't think anybody can make any complaint that we have anything to do. Then I should reiterate that I'm not trying to tell that our EVM system is not good, that they must be very good, but I think at the same time, we have the honor as a part of the government to show to the public that this is good. And this method that I'm telling, they're all very, very standard new techniques. Zero knowledge, blockchain, multivariate computation, I can put all three together and then I can actually give a proof that it is a full system. Now this is going to be extremely important. The last topic I want to talk about is the IoT, and not in details, but I'll also give you a challenge to all of you. Now, what are IoT? Small devices, like sensors. They are put into in some network. Say, for example, I think I have one that I have seen used. The customer may not like it, but I have seen that they use sensors in the border area. And what the sensors sense? They try to sense whether there is a movement near the border, so whether human beings are moving or some arsenal is moving and so on and so forth. So the sensors would communicate and let us know if there is some movement there. Or there could be in the airport, they employ many sensors. Also, they prefer dogs, but there's many sensors. The sensors are supposed to identify certain explosives which could damage the airport. And the sensors will sense it and pass the information. Now, what is the main issue here? The sensors have very little battery power, very little memory, and very negligible computational power. Okay, so I assume that I have an adversary and who may try to tap into what is going to happen within the sensor, and also the sensors do not communicate too long. They have a RF radio frequency radius. So one sensor can communicate with the other sensor. This could be 100 meters. This is the range of 100 kilometers. You have single sensor that communicate beyond. How we can communicate to this network, and ultimately the inference comes to a control loop. So one sensor sends to other sensor, other sensor sends other sensor, and so on and so forth within the range. And finally, it comes to the control loop, or to the where the inference will go. Now, if I assume an adversary, actually we assume otherwise don't exist. If no adversary, we lose our job because technology is not needed. We assume adversary. If they may try to, break this communication, get what is happening in the communication, that is will try to do that. And how do we protect it? If we encrypt our even the communication will go to the phone. So there, what are the issues? Number one, an encryption. So followed by decryption and other ends. Number two, authentication. That the sensor should know that it has come from this sensor and nobody actually spoofed it. So Saksana is sending a message to Shoykot, but I can pretend that if I'm Saksana, I can send a message to Shoykot. So Shoykot might absolutely sure that it's coming from Saksana, so it's a notion of signature, authentication signature. So sensor to sensor communication would be is going to be encrypted. Number two, it has to authenticate it. It is a notion of signature, so I should know from where I'm actually getting the information. And number three is that there is a issue of key management. Okay. Normally we use Symmetric Cryptography for both and having the same key, but they have to know what is the common key. Okay, the most nice thing would be I put the same key to all the sensors. Then if I can get hold of one sensor, I have had the entire network. That is why we have to have a way of doing the key management. Now the standard encryption technique, the algorithm, the signatures, the key management. As you look in the literature, they do need a lot of computational effort. They need sufficient memory. They need sufficient battery power. Without that, we cannot do this. So all these standard things are not really suitable for this IoT devices. We do not know. We have to compose it a little bit, but we have to think of afresh. So if I tell you this is my battery power, this is my memory available, okay, and this much computation I can do. So given that, so customer says I have so much battery power, so much memory, and so much. So given that, can I design an encryption algorithm? Can I design an authentication or signature? Can I design a key management which is going to make it a secure IoT? And this is a challenge. US government has actually going for an open challenge or open invitation for algorithms for all these things. And we are starting the thing in India too. So, Data Security Council of India, I'm advising them. So they will launch.
Hello, Bimal sir. Sorry for the interference, sir. Sir, a lot of noise is coming from background, sir. Sir, some beep sound is coming, sir.
Not from my
Or either I think you have some electronic device like mobile in front of your laptop or something, sir.
No. My mobile is very fast. It was
Sir,
raining,
still
but
it is
now the rain
coming,
has,
sir.
subsided. So this should not be so bad. I don't know what's the problem. Is it true with everyone? The Devashish, can you listen to me?
Beep sound is coming from the background, sir.
Sounds are coming, sir.
Sounds are coming?
Yes, sir. Sound is coming.
The rain has stopped. It has stopped now. It was the rain.
Mute and unmute once if it can be solved, sir, from the mic problem, if there is a mic problem.
So let me unmute and mute again. Is it any better?
Yes, still it is coming, sir.
I will with my office laptop, there's nothing else I can do now. Okay, my lecture is almost at the end. So what we are going to do, I will add by next week. We are asking open challenge or competition from the Indian research student community. So they have to design encryption algorithm, they have to design authentication, also key management, which can go into the small IoT devices. We specify very limited memory, limited battery power, and you have to devise algorithm. And top 3 algorithms will be given award, and this will be probably given to our like Dell or ECIL to go for manufacturing or for fabrication. And at the same time, since the customer is here, that government doesn't like to use open algorithms, but this algorithm should be tweakable and scalable. Because meaning that this algorithm I know this is, so you become first in the competition. So that means the jury, in which I am a member, and pretty many others will be members, if you say that this is the best algorithm, government will adopt it, but it should be enough parameters there to tweak it, so that the tweaked version is not known to the others. And those things can go into production, and DAIT has taken the initiative. The DSI is hosting that, and I am the expert behind it with my colleagues here. So I'll invite many people to be the jury, but I invite the entire student community and research community to come up with their proposal and go for this national level challenge. And the first of the kind we are doing it at the national level, we are asking people to come up with algorithms and we will make a judgment. But before you will be doing some tweaking. Okay, so maybe I'll stop here. And I don't know if there is scope of question and answers. Devashish can tell. Otherwise, they can send me emails with their questions, and I can send the email back. Okay, Devashish, I'm done.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for your speech, sir.
How does the question answer go? They can send me. You can give them my email.
Okay, sir. Okay.
They can put my questions,
Okay,
or
sir,
if
thank you very much.
One or two questions, and I'll send you the copy of the announcement of this challenge. Which we call it lightweight challenge, and you can distribute it to this challenge and give the link to everybody. I think by next Monday, the challenge will be published by DSCI. And Dr. Satya will be ready to be a part of a member of the jury. So I'm trying to find a good jury of 8-10 people who will make the judgment of which algorithms are good. So I'm still trying to find juries also at the national level, but we need proposals, so we can propagate this to the students and the faculty. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Sir. So now,
Dr. Giri, Dr. Giri, can I have a word before you move to the next speaker?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. The voice quality of Professor Roy was not as good. So, so whether I was only thinking that if there's a glitch in somewhere, so that I mean the benefit of his expertise should go to the participants. If they, then it has a prerequisite to have a good quality voice. If not the face video quality, but the audio quality has to be better. I don't know whether you can, fix it up before you move to this next speaker. But you may check the next speaker's voice quality before. Maybe it was a problem only with Professor Roy's audio system.
Kindly check it, Dr. Giri. Because I also could not listen many things. Vimalda is an outstanding scientist.
Yeah, he's an outstanding. That's true. I mean, I couldn't get much benefit because of the quality of the audio system, which was poor.
Very poor. Yes.
So before you move to the next speaker, let you fix the glitch first.
Kindly
check for.
Saxena sir, can you share your slide?
Dr. Saxena. Yeah. Am I audible? Welcome. Yeah, you are absolutely clearly audible.
Okay.
Now, kindly show your slide and say a few words so that we can understand the quality of audio and video.
Yeah, I hope that my voice should not get that much distorted because I
No,
don't
your
have
voice is clear. Your voice is clear. Yes,
Okay.
Professor Siddiqui?
I agree with Professor Moitra. Yeah, voice is clear.
Okay.
Voice is clear.
So due to rain, Professor, probably
No, there may be. The technical problem can happen always, but at least the participants are there eagerly waiting to learn something, and they should get benefit. That is our point. Teachers from our university and Professor Siddiqui's university, they have participated, and they are taking serious note. I know they are taking notes of all these things. So I was also trying to note something.
Yeah,
I could not
I
listen
very
maybe.
sad that I think it was basically for the, now can you listen to me?
Again, can I make a small request to Professor
Sure.
Professor Roy?
Yes.
If Professor
Sure,
Roy
sure.
can send some write up to the participants as well as me.
That will be of immense help. That will be of immense help. I also do agree. I also do agree with Professor Siddiqui.
Yeah.
Bimalda, you can write. You just send us one. This write up of your lecture.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So that the transcript of your lecture, something like this.
So
that
highly learned. Because I find in him a highly learned expert on the field.
Malware is a national figure in cybersecurity. He is a national figure.
I agree.
And, already he has talked to us. This not, but if possible, then if it is can be made one write up of all your these points of your lectures, we will circulate it among all these participants.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
So now our next speaker is
Dr. Baura is from France, not Sweden. Professor Siddiqui, she is from France.
That's
so
okay.
You are muted.
Okay.
Now our next speaker is Dr. Saxena. Dr. P.K. Saxena is the scientific consultant, cybersecurity, former director of DRDO, Delhi, India. Dr. Saxena has outstanding scientist and director of one of the premier laboratories, DRDO. He joined the SAG, Scientific Analytic Group, DRDO in 1981. He has published more than 80 papers in the international journal and conferences, and he has chairman and member of several government committee and panel reviewers of government funded projects. Now he will speak on crypto cybersecurity concerns and challenges. So, sir, Saxena sir, can you share your slide?
Yeah, so shall I start my presentation?
Yes.
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 Yes, sir. Tim, can you
Yes, it is visible, sir.
just to click?
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, it is visible, sir.
Yes,
Just
yes,
run the PPT, sir. Yes, sir. Your PPT is opening, sir. Yes, sir. Sir. Yes.
It's all
It is
right?
now. Yes, sir. Yes. Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Giri and other team for giving this opportunity to talk on cybersecurity concerns and challenges in this today's webinar. What I would do is that I would start with some of the concerns, and then I will also talk about some measures which we can take to mitigate those challenges and the threats. So let's just look at that, what actually we mean by cyberspace. So cyberspace is like a physical space, a physical world. Physical world is populated with people, systems, gadgets, group of communities. We have cities, colonies, and many incidents happen in our day-to-day life everywhere. So parallel to that, we have our cyberspace, which is also populated with many devices, systems, sensors, networks, smart utilities, services, microcontrollers, which gives us global connectivity. And here in cyberspace, we always, our information flow is in bits and bytes. So information is stored, represented in bits and bytes, is stored in bits and bytes, and communicated in bits and bytes. So here we are talking about protecting all these bits and bytes, which represent our feelings, our other communications, information, and all. And for our communication with our society, we have so many tools these days which we use. We use Twitter, Facebook, mailing, messaging, WhatsApp, FaceTime, Skype. Many of these things we use for our personal communication and personal contacts, but many of these we also use for some communication of some other important information also. We also do a lot of online services, and such as online ticketing, online bill payment, online shopping, credit and debit card we use day and night, net banking, online fund transfer for buying policies or many other applications. We also fill IT returns, and we also do some KYC through Aadhaar card, and here also some information is exchanged about our Aadhaar number and our biometrics on the internet. So in many of, almost all of these applications, we communicate and share some important information, some personal information, some financial information, all of which is important and we would like to protect it. So when it comes to protecting, what actually we want to protect and what we want to achieve when we talk about cybersecurity. So first and foremost is that we want to protect the contents from the unauthorized access. And here, while protecting, we want that the information should be exchanged to the people who are authorized. So authenticating that somebody is sending information to me, he is the person who I feel that he should be. And I am talking to somebody, so I should make sure that I am talking to the right person, not somebody else. So authenticating the persons and the systems. Many times when we talk about the systems, persons, actually we mean by systems because many information is being exchanged between systems rather than, so one end could be individual, another could be system, or both systems, or both and maybe persons, and in between series of systems may come. So this is the second objective, and we also want that this exchange of information should be authentic in the sense that without my knowledge, it should not be modified or fabricated by some eavesdropper or somebody. So some safeguard against imposters we would like to have. We would like to have non-repudiation. Somebody does something and then he should not deny that he has not done it. Ensuring integrity of information exchange for trust and reliability, and service availability of service. That means if I want to communicate, I should be able to communicate without any interruption. So And also I would like to get receipt or an acknowledgement, receipt of information in many cases. So in many systems which we use these days, there are mechanisms to take care of all these points, many of these points uh, through some technological means. And like in authenticating before actually exchange of the contents, there is a mechanism of synchronization and mechanism of authentication to ensure that the two sides are the right persons, and so on and so forth. But still there are attacks which happen. So this figure you might have seen in standard books, which we call security attacks in a network. One is that denial of service, where somebody interrupts the communication and the information doesn't flow from this side to this side. This is the normal flow, and this is that interruption where information doesn't flow from one side to another, which in our technical term we say denial of service attack. And here somebody, without the knowledge of the two people communicating, somebody intercepts, that is interception. So this we many times in electronic communication we cannot help it, but now when we talk about quantum communication and quantum technologies, probably technologically we are going to handle this interruption. If somebody tries to interrupt, it will be known, and it will not be unknown to the people who are communicating. And somebody interrupts and then modifies the information, which is known as modification. And fabrication, that without knowledge of the person, somebody else communicate on behalf, and this person doesn't know. So these are the standard attacks: denial of service attack, interruption, modification, fabrication, which we have been learning. These are the security threats. Now, these days, so many theft, identity theft attacks are happening. And the very important aspect is, which we many time neglect, which is through social engineering. And many times the information is actually stolen through social engineering, becoming friendly and making some excuses to get information, like somebody calling on phone, telling that your card is being renewed and we need authentication from your side. They may tell few digits, because those few digits are communicated through SMS also from bank. And then they will say that, tell me the rest of the digits of your account number or password, and so on and so forth. So these are all kind of social engineering attacks. Some information like the slips which we get, we throw somewhere, people know, can read that how much is your bank account and all. So some methods which is called social engineering, but there are some other standard methods like phishing, wishing, and smishing, where people try to get meaningful information, giving some information in piecemeal to convince the person that I am the right person to ask this information from you. So there are two types of attacks. One is hacking, another is data breach, which we encounter these days. And hacking actually means that without your knowledge, somebody else takes control of your device. Either it is a smartphone, computer, mobile device, or whatever it is, and then takes control of the device. And it may seek the information which you are typing on the system, like through keystroke logging software, or it may initiate some communication or some dialogue from your system without your knowledge to the other end. So these are some of the hacking practices. And some data breaches. I will give some examples of these data breaches, where hacker doesn't simply try to hack individuals' smartphone, but try to extract organize some information in a bulk from some data of the organization, from some clouds or from some data servers and such other places where the information is residing. So these days, the progress in this, as we have increased the use of digital technologies, many new things are happening, and every day new threats are coming. And these are the progress which we are making, and we talk about Internet of Things. So all kind of devices, programmable devices we use in our day-to-day life, hundreds of them are there. High-speed trains, aircrafts, and all these are using sophisticated control systems, which again are vulnerable because they are software code, and they, if properly not guarded properly, they can be hacked and mismanaged. Drones is another example. We are very much dependent on surveillance drones these days for many purposes. Even for sending some small consignment of some explosives to some places and all, so even such services for security purposes, they are there. Bitcoins and cryptocurrency is another new area. The progress is made, and people are actually doing a lot of business in Bitcoins. Though in India it's not yet legalized, but in many countries it's a legal service. And here it's a just cryptocurrency, currency in terms of some binary numbers. And it is managed in such a manner that it's not easy to breach into this, but still some of the hacking has happened in this business also. There is a dark web which is known for all kind of illegal activities, and they actually are potential buyers of lot of personal data of individuals, which they can exploit later on for extortion of money and all. 3D printing is another progress, and in most of the designs, in fact, this 3D printing is used. So there also it's a vulnerable thing. So wherever we make a progress, and we also actually create some of the vulnerabilities unknowingly, because nobody likes to leave any loopholes. But when we design something, our main objective is on the targets, that what we want to achieve, what performance the system does give, and many things they are observed later on. So our growing concerns is this space security, where these satellites, hundreds of thousands of satellites are circling our Earth, and if proper security is not there, then some collisions may happen, or targeted attacks on satellites could happen. So this similarly, our border territory, look at then when the missile is actually fired, and if the control system is hacked, and the location parameters of a designated place where this missile is to fall, if that is manipulated, then this missile can fall at some other place rather than the destination. So all such kind of things can happen, because most of these things are actually having these control systems, which are hardware as well as software based. Data security these days is one issue, as I was telling. So blockchain is one of the new technology which is being used to keep this data in a more secure manner, in a secured ledger, so that it's difficult, or it's much more money consuming exercise to breach these blockchains. And financial security is our great concerns, because this disturbs whole of the economy. And Bitcoin, of course, is a cryptocurrency which we are not so much bothered in our country, but other bank frauds, and they impact our this economy. Even not just banks, even other organizations, if some fraud happen, their shares are suddenly down, and people lose crores of money in seconds. So some of the cyber attacks which are possible these days are still there, even if some modern computers and laptops have so many plugging the vulnerabilities, but still some attacks are possible. And more so is in the low-end IoT devices, which any individual as a common man looks at some gadget and he feels that, yeah, it's very good, it's doing this job. And say, for example, the fitness trackers, or the watches, smart watches which we wear, which monitor our health parameters and all. So without bothering, we try to use them. But again, these are all have some vulnerabilities, because many fitness trackers would have not taken that care that this can corrupt the data, or this can transmit your confidential data to some other place. So those kind of things individuals are not bothered, or they are not aware of. Some thermostat, security monitoring devices, etc. So all these devices which are coming up, which we are using, I think there is a great concern. Now we can divide, we can know about the vulnerabilities, and the new designing can take care of that. But what about the hundreds of millions of vulnerable devices which are already there globally? Like the CCTV cameras. Many CCTV cameras are installed at houses, homes, and offices and all. But there are known vulnerabilities in CCTV cameras, which I will talk about in subsequent thing. So many such things are happening, but why they are happening? The hacking actually happens because many devices use password, but password management is poor. That's one reason. And many times while we design our website, we are not designing keeping that security in our mind. Also, when the systems are designed, and many times these systems are designed taking components and subcomponents, subsystems designed by somebody else. Like in India, if we say that we design some system, it's nothing original design. Something will be taken, some chips will be taken from Taiwan, and some PCB cards will be taken from some Brussels, and some subsystems will be taken from somewhere else, and they will be integrated here. Now, all those things may be having vulnerabilities, and deliberate vulnerabilities, or undeliberate vulnerabilities. But the ultimate result is that the system is malicious, may have the malicious functions built in. So this, if we try to make some add-on security on these systems which have already been designed, that's not foolproof, and we still encounter so many problems. Social engineering is one thing, as I talked earlier, which is main point of concern. Weak management of encryption and security guards, ignorance about vulnerabilities, exploitation of bugs in operating system and apps. And in fact, when these versions, you might have seen that any software you will find version number so and so, version number so and so. So why these versions are coming? As I've told that at the first instance, when some software is written, it has got some specific objective in its mind, and the software is written with that objective. But within that, some codes in between, there may be some vulnerabilities left in, or somebody might have modified the code and inserted some malicious code in some application software. Of course, operating system is by some standard company, but still there could be some internal people who could do that kind of a damage to damage the organization. So many such things can happen, and these bugs are actually noticed later on, and then they are being plugged in. And you plug in one bug, and after some time you find another and another. That's how the smart gadgets like watches and all, and operating system also, they keep on reminding the patches and then upgradation and version and all that, which we should do, because we should patch up the vulnerabilities which have been observed. But in some sensitive applications and like in national security related gadgets, there may be some concern about even these patches also. You never know, these patches may be there to befool you that we are trying to plug in some vulnerability, but this is actually putting up some vulnerabilities in the system. So we have to be very careful in dealing with all these matters. There are some other attacks which are happening. Some academic group did this exercise. They actually dropped around 150 thumb drives at several common places like cafeteria and all. And in those, they inserted some code. And that code, if you with that code, if that thumb drive is put in on the system, the contents of your system can be copied, totally copied without your knowledge on the thumb drive. So this is a very easy code. It's not difficult. It's a easy code which can reside on the thumb drive. So this exercise was done, and then they found that people, almost 60 to 70% of the people used those thumb drives. Of course, their objective was not to steal the data on the system, but they wanted to prove that anything free people take. They take without thinking that this freebies could do damage to us. So similarly, on our mobiles, many offers, free offers and cashback and so many things are coming every day. And many times we fall to such offers and we lose our data. Sometimes we know about that data loss. Sometimes we even don't know about the data loss, and we come to know about it much later time. So this exercise was done. Similarly, these drop boxes and backup services in our mobile. Now, Dropbox is some area in the cloud which will be assigned to you, and where all your photographs and everything will be stored and all. But who knows that whether these can be exploited, or they can be used by some people. So they are also have, these are again some freebies kind of a thing. Like you need not increase your memory, you take a Dropbox and keep your things there. Similarly, CCTV medium is an attack, and this camera can be hacked, and the information can be stolen from the area where this surveillance is happening. Smart bulbs are another vulnerable objects in our gadgets, and it was actually proved and shown that one Philips LED bulb, which these bulbs are these days, the smart bulbs are actually controlled through internet, and in any form of the world, if this bulb, you can switch it on, switch it off. You can stimulate TV screening as if from outside it will look somebody is watching TV and all. These facilities are there to facilitate the individuals, but these can be exploited by the person And the experiment with this Philips bulb was done that its illumination and lumens could be manipulated to an extent that if you watch it, you will get some kind of a disease like epilepsy. Some seizures will happen if you continuously be in that lumens of the smart bulb. So it's a kind of biological attack through the bulb, which was demonstrated. And these Philips bulbs were, of course, discontinued, and this vulnerability was told to them. So similarly, some other devices also can have switches or thermostats, and they can have some kind of a malware in this. And since all these home appliances, smart home appliances, they are interconnected to each. So if one of gadget IoT device is infected, this pathogen, like a pathogen, it can infect all other devices. Another attack through light bulb. This is very recent. I think only this month this has come. They have this Ben University of and Israel, this institute. They demonstrated a simple light bulb. There is no smart bulb. It is a simple light bulb which is glowing. It is a 12-watt bulb which is glowing in the room. And they could listen the communication outside the room 80 feet away. And what was the principle which we used? The principle which they used was that this speech which is within that room, this actually influences the wavelength and light waves emitted by the lab. So the bulb is emitting some light waves, and this speech which actually influence that, and in some sense the influence will depend upon the speech. And this distorted optical signal from the bulb plus this speech, this can be captured through a telescope mounted with electro-optical sensor placed on eyepiece of the telescope. And then there this optical sensor, there through some software, this speech signal can be extracted and amplified to a audible speech, and one can listen. So this is the actual bulb, sorry, electro-optic sensor, the number which they have given. Sensor was used on 12-watt light bulb in a room from a distance of 80 feet. And conversation going on in the room was reconstructed and heard. So this experiment has recently been done, reported there this month in July itself. And the mitigation of this attack, they have told that all the light bulbs, they should be having the wall of the bulb to be thicker, and they should not be open so that somebody can focus on that from outside. So they should be inside some shade. And the other thing is that even if you are talking about something confidential, you talk in low volume, like our old system of talking in a ear, like that. So that is the mitigation. Otherwise, technology is there which can capture. So this is just demonstrated in the month of July. Another threat which is coming these days, I think most of the, not most, but some of you might have actually got an app, oxygen level measuring app, some messaging in WhatsApp group that you can download this app on your mobile, and you can measure your oxygen level. And in these COVID-19 case, this measurement of oxygen level is an important parameter, even if when you are home quarantine, because if it decreases from certain value, then you have to actually contact the doctors for further. So people thought that this device otherwise is costing 3,000 rupees and I am getting it free. But that's an attack. That's not a help to the individual. And here, in fact, the method is that you have to put your finger on the camera and the light will glow and it will take your fingerprint. Okay, so though they say that it will take actually the sense the blood and the constituent of HB, and then oxygen level, 2 HB levels ratio gives you the oxygen level and all. So, but it will also take your, may take your fingerprint. And also during the process of downloading and putting it on your mobile, it innocuously may ask your access to your storage and photo, which without bothering we keep on yes, 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 and all that, and we install the system. But without thinking that these storage of all storage, access to all storage means gives it full access to your whatever you are doing on your system. And such as like all your photograph and videos stored on mobile are actually vulnerable. They can be taken away. And the SMS which we get from our bank alerts when we withdraw money from ATM or from somebody deposits and withdraws, ATM and this bank alerts come, which also tells that regularly that what is your total balance left and all. So all those figures, because they ultimately go to the storage. So they are now accessible through this mobile app for oxygen level measuring. So there is an alert which actually which was issued in this WhatsApp group also, and in our PSA office also officially we issued that be careful about this app. So these are and this is the reference one can see. Hack both security is a myth. This is, if you type this, you will get most of the details there. So this is the idea is that lot of innovation methods are being used by these hackers, and to steal the information, either to disrupt or deny your service, or you steal or exchange the information on your behalf, or steal your private information and sell it elsewhere. So all such type of objectives these people have in their mind. And these are some other experiments were done that demonstrated spreading infection in the internet in a building, driving a car 220 feet away. So here there is no access, it's the remote kind of instruction infection of the internet system. And this is 2 years back a story that US company Dyn was hacked, and it was totally shut down. So attacker took control of more than 1 lakh low-end devices that can autonomously access internet, and the whole system was paralyzed. This there was also this protocol Zigbee, which was created in 1990. But this again, when we people studied this further, this vulnerabilities was found, and this standard can be used to create computer worm. So something which was in 1990, and that can be used now as a tool, malicious tool. So as I've told that in 1990, the people who actually created Zigbee, they would have not realized, or they would have not visualized this kind of thing can happen. But when the things happen, progress happens, then such vulnerabilities come to be known, and then they have to implement. The other application which many times we use is these days that we fix up meetings. We create groups and we fix up meetings. We use Google Meet and many other such applications. And there is some mechanism where we record or register those incidents or the activities in a calendar. So .ics calendar, some people studied that, and they found that these hackers hide phishing links inside this .ics calendar invitations. So this CoFence Phishing Defense Center discovered that cyber criminals are using calendar invitations to launch phishing attacks. So who would visualize that simple looking events I am registering in my calendar, and that facility will actually put me on some vulnerable platform. So I think such many such other concerns are coming, and these are all latest vulnerabilities which have come to the I mean to our knowledge and declared on the information network. This 17-year-old critical vulnerable RC vulnerability impacts Windows DNS server. As I've told, that 17-year-old vulnerable RC vulnerabilities. So this is a new critical vulnerable remote code execution vulnerability in the Windows DNS server could let unauthorized authenticated hackers compromise the entire corporate network using unauthorized domain administrative privileges. So even the domain administrator privileges can be accessed. So this game of designers and hackers, this actually continues, and something when they come to our knowledge, then they are plugged. So this goes on. A recent incident of this, you might have heard about hacking of this Twitter account. This is a very well-known thing on July 15 and July 16. This news came that hackers targeted Twitter employees to hijack accounts of Elon Musk, Joe Biden, and other digital currency scam. So this was again that digital Bitcoin currency scam, and this is the reference one can see. And here actually hackers hacked even former Barack Obama, former US president's account. Also they hacked, apart from some important like Bill Gates and Joe Biden and all. And they actually displayed some tweets telling followers to send Bitcoin to a specific address. So that was the hacking. That the display puts the photograph of Barack Obama on one side so that it looks very authentic that this message is tweeted by Barack Obama. So this happened very recently, and Twitter also did investigation, and they said that they have uncovered this operation that targeted Twitter employees to gain access to internal systems and tools. And then they said that they announced that they have plugged in that loophole. Similarly, there is a news recently that on coronavirus, the US has a very advanced stage of coming up with the vaccine. So US accuses 2 Chinese hackers of seeking to steal coronavirus vaccine research. So this acquisition was made, and of course here these 2 Chinese who were there later on, some explanation came that they are the Chinese, though they are from Chinese origin, but they are now American citizen, and some explanations came. But still, I think whatever is important economically, now this is very, very important economically, because one who comes with the vaccine first, then he wins a lot of financial gain in economic environment. So that's how even hackers try to steal that information and pass it on to other person. And some more information can be read here. The latest attack, I am not talking about general attacks like your worms and computer viruses, worms and time bomb and Trojan horse and all. These are all malwares and all that. But recently, our more concern is about this ransomware, because this puts a person total mercy of the individual attacker. And what this ransomware does is that it actually encrypts the critical data of the system, and then you can't access that information on your system unless you pay some money. So some extortion is to be paid. And This is ransomware is actually frequently delivered through spear phishing emails. Some emails will come, and if you click that and then reply, then this ransomware will reside, and then it will encrypt. And normally they encrypt with some strong encryption algorithm like AES, which otherwise cannot be deciphered unless you have access to key. And key they will keep somewhere, maybe on the system, or so that you may have to pay that ransom. So after the user has been logged at a system, the cyber actor demands a ransom payment, and after receiving payment, the actor will probably provide an avenue to the victim to regain access of the system. But this MC Soft has come with some latest tool, free ransomware decryption tool. So one can look at this details of his MC Soft and details of this tool. But this is a tool which does the analysis of these ransom kind of attacks. And it does three things. First, it identifies the ransomware, and it identifies whether the decryption tools are available on the system, and then it tries to get back the files back. And it has got some process that what you have to do. You have to upload some whatever information has come. So ransom note you have to upload. You have to upload the encrypted file which they have encrypted, and some ransom contact information. So with the help of this, this company says that they can actually do this decryption without paying the ransom. And what he suggests is, and that is the logical also, that one should not pay the ransom because there is no end to it. And even if after taking money, they may not actually decrypt, and then they may ask more money and something like that. So it's always better to take help of law enforcement agencies or agencies who are capable of doing it, and rather than paying the ransom. But this is a very potential threat these days. And I have seen the cases. It's not just the ransom from the organization. I have seen is a one particular simple small business person who is doing a small business of giving income tax return, or making passports and all kind of a thing, giving on some commission basis. And their whole system was hacked, and he was asked for $400. Of course, the amount was not much, but again, the issue was that that was not end to it. Another recent incident which has come to news is that hacker is selling details of 142 million MGM hotel guests on the dark web. This was on the media for a number of days. And MGM Resorts says that it was actually much larger than initially reported. So this hotel guest all data was gone. So, so actually, these malwares are the biggest means of attack, and all these are malwares. So, to encounter that, some malware analysis tool has been designed by Remux, and Remux Linux version 7 has come in the market, which actually does a lot of analysis and helps in analyzing if this attack has happened. So one can look at this Linux version 7 tool, and this is in fact contains of hundred of tools, executables, and all. It was actually for 10 years now, but this is a new version which has come. Another helpful, I think, book which has come, one can look at, is Malware Reverse Engineering Handbook. This is written by these three people from NATO CCDOC. What is this NATO CCDOC? Is Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence. Is a NATO accredited cyber defense hub focusing on research, training, and exercises. It represents a community of 25 nations as providing a 360-degree view of cyber defense with expertise in the area of technology, strategy, operations, and law. So they have come up with some malware reverse engineering handbook, which is quite helpful for individuals also and for government organizations also. So how do we protect actually all our networks against these threats, which are we have been talking about? So regular backup is one. Like even if ransomware attack happens, if we are having our regular backup, we will not bother about the ransom and we can upload our data from these backups. And we should also do the risk analysis of the organizations periodically, that what kind of risk do we have. Staff training is important, that awareness to the people working with us in the company or in our organization, that what are the security best practices which we should follow. That is very important. And vulnerability patching, whenever some patches are coming in known systems, they should be patched. And of course, with some care that whether this patch is also could be a malicious thing. So some thinking is required for that purpose. And whitelisting all approved programs, software packages which we use, and we should not use anything from the black market without license and all, because they all are cheap, but they may be malicious. They deliberately, some codes may be there hidden. Incident response, if something happens, that there should be some plan that how we handle that, and periodically doing penetrating testing to see that how strong our systems are against these kind of attacks. So these are the regular things which in an organization we should have. Recently, this micro Windows file recovery tool has proposed by this Microsoft, and there actually the purpose is that if your file is deleted by mistake, then you can recover. So actually this this is an important facility for common man, but for a person who was working in some sensitive area, or if handling or creating some personal sensitive information like our all details, password people keep on sometimes on our laptops and all. So there they may delete it, and they may be assured that I have deleted. But that deletion is not actually the permanent deletion, because this facility in Windows is there, and somebody can get hold of your system and may recover your sensitive material on that. So any sensitive material, if it is on the laptop, that should be deleted securely. There are some secure deletion tools which are available. They should be used for, not ordinary tools for deletion, because recovery tools are available. So this is otherwise as a accidental thing, this is a very useful tool. So hardware, we use USB drive, SD cards and other things. Even it can recover MP3 files, MP4, PDF files and all. It's a good tool which can do that. And this again some details of how it is doing, and is whether you have to tell about the file type or whatever. Earlier actually they were using file history features, but now in this they don't use that file history features. The Microsoft uses Linux instead of Windows of Azure Space Cybersecurity Insider. So in fact this always this debate goes on whether Windows is better or Linux is better for cybersecurity purposes, and people argue this way or that way. But now I think more opinion is emerging towards Linux as far as the security is concerned. And even Microsoft is also actually using this Linux for this particular application. And they announced in this RSA conference, this is an important annual event which happens. So there they announced this thing. and they said that this will help them to cross over a class of microcontroller units. So with all these, I think our safeguards are awareness of vulnerabilities and threats, security in layers. So some physical security, transport layer. There are 7 layers of security which we talk about in cybersecurity. So each layer is important, and we have to adopt an hybrid approach where something better in one technology is amalgamated with something in another technology. And more important in this cybersecurity is policy and guidelines. So actually, whatever you do, it's not possible to plug in all vulnerabilities and threats in the systems only through technology. So maybe somebody may have to spend more money, more time to achieve some access to some useful information. But this policy and guidelines, they actually help us in plugging those. So one policy, like any sensitive information, if you want to use on your system, then that system should never be used with the internet, or should not be connected with the internet anytime. And even through thumb drive also, I think one has to sensitize and then transfer it on other PC, but this PC should never be connected to internet. So some such policies and guidelines of the organization are important. We should also know about the cyber laws, that what is done, what is not done. And of course, technologies are there which help us in this area. Many technologies which I think in crypto and other things will be learned. So necessary controls during development, designing of the systems, manufacturing, supply chain, import. It's not, our concern is not just when the system comes in our hand and policy is there to use that system. That's the later part. But if we want to handle this security, cyber security, we have to be careful right from the development and designing and manufacturing itself, and the supply chain, import and export business. And security has to be designed in the system right from the beginning by design, not by add-on. And this hardware, software, architecture, OS and protocol, they should be used, which are trustworthy and trusted data. There are 7 C's. So I think these are some of the important approaches to handle. And some technology security means, again, if we look at our first or second transparency, when I showed that figure of denial of service and those kind of things. So these are the standard terms: confidentiality, authenticity, integrity, availability. And these are the technological means. Cryptography gives us confidentiality, it protects the information. And authenticity, cryptography is also one such thing. Authenticity, that many times this hash functions and other secure protocols, communication protocols, they help us. And integrity of information is assured through hash functions. Many types of hash functions are available, and availability is assured in the network through firewalls, routing, protocols, and many other technological means. So I think I will stop here, and any questions if you have, then I can answer, because this is the right place to stop, rather than talking about this crypto. These our friends will talk on these crypto things. So I will stop here, and any questions or comments, we can answer them.
Sir, there are few questions. Hello, sir. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
So there are few questions comes from the audience.
Okay.
Who has control over Bitcoin?
Just me close. Let me close this first. So, yeah.
Sir, one question, Sam, who is controlling the Bitcoin?
Actually, there is no one controlling. Initially, this cryptocurrency was proposed by a person in Japan, Japanese thing. But this cryptocurrency and all these things are being managed in using this blockchain technologies. And in blockchain technologies, every user is actually the controller. So one is authorized and one can keep it. There is some initial proposer of like Bitcoin, somebody proposed, and there are many other cryptocurrencies, they were proposed by individuals. But once they are there, they are managed by the users themselves.
Okay, sir, thanks. Sir, another question is, what are the differences between phishing and vishing?
Phishing and vishing, in fact, sometimes some malicious, information being sent, and without your knowledge, something is happening. And vishing, you also actually become a part of sharing that information. So some information where will be stolen, but some information will be given by you.
Related to voice and video or something.
Yeah.
And sir, another question is there, how can protect from fraud email and URLs, etc. from the media? Hello. Yeah. Another question, how we can protect ourselves from the fraud emails, URLs, etc.
No, in our email, what we are actually getting, email is a media where we can exchange our messages, to the intended recipient. Okay. Now there are two types of information which we exchange on the these emails. One is that we write something, that is, we create that content on the email from our own. And second is that we forward some links, some URLs and some links for some other information, or so that information may be some file or it may be some website. So whatever form it is, that is something which we are giving a link. Now these links which are given, actually these links, all links may not be authenticated links, because somebody has sent the link to me. He has not created that link, but he has forwarded that link. He received from somewhere and he forwarded it to me. So to me, it has come from Mr. A. Okay, Mr. A may not be the creator of that link, but he is forwarder. So, but now if I click on that link, irrespective from that, from where that link has come, I will go to that website or to that link. So whatever vulnerabilities that link is having, it will come to me. The individual who has not in between, there may be many stages of forwarding. So anybody who is just forwarding, he will not be affected. But the person who will actually click the link, he will be affected.
Okay, sir. Thank you. And sir, another question is relation between information security and information storage.
Yeah. So say information security is a broad term. Okay. So many times people say that whether cyber security is a part of information security or information security is a part of information cyber security. So so we define. I mean, these terms have been defined, but cyber security seems to be a broader origin within which securing the information, that information security comes into. And information security, as I have told, that it is not just the securing the content. It also encompasses or has its constituent of these authentication, that communicating, even keeping the communication secret. So all kind of secrecy related to the information comes in. So information security is not the securing the content. Okay. So information storage means that information is to be stored somewhere. Now, if we store that information in a secure manner, we will say that information this is a secure storage. Now, the security of that information when it is stored, it can be in two parts. One is that some area either on cloud or on our SANS server in our premises, in our strong room. Either we store this data on that server, which is physical access I am controlling myself. Okay, nobody can enter that room, and that server is there, and that server is connected to some clients outside, but it is all in my control. It's not connected to network. Okay, so then this provides the security to the information, or to the information which is stored on this. Above that, I will encrypt it and keep it rather than keeping it plain. So this is second layer of encryption which is happening. So first is this control of that storage media, total control, and then the encryption, and then that's protocol and guidelines that who is authorized to access that information, and also all sorts of things come. But when it comes to cloud, then on cloud, we don't have that physical security in our hand, because cloud is some storage somewhere, which is not visible to us. This is invisible to us. But the cloud managers, those people who are providing that service, they have to ensure that my data which I am storing on that cloud is secure. So there again, there could be two levels of security for securing data. One is that the data is actually encrypted and kept in the cloud, storage. And second is that the manager of that cloud makes sure that no unauthorized person can access even that encrypted data. Okay, so they take charge. They charge for money for providing all these services. But when the first situation, when the total server was in my own control, and the second situation when server is, the data is on cloud, I am more comfortable in the first situation, because I am still not very confident, always 100% confident that the cloud service provider will not cheat us. Okay, so of course we can't always be so if you say that you don't trust anybody, then you can't take service. So some compromise and something is there if you have to get that access to that. So the information storage in a secure manner, then it becomes that the information has been information security has been provided to that information which is stored there.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your speech and for discussion with our participants. Sir, many participants requested to get your slides. Many one of them.
I will send to you slides, because whatever I presented, I will send to you, and then you can share with them.
Okay, so many are requested.
Yeah, I will
okay.
share. No problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you once again.
Yeah.
Hello.
Sir, our next speaker, is Dr. Krishna Boda. Dr. Krishna Boda completed her PhD entitled on analysis of cryptographic hash functions in 2012 at IRNA in France. Since 2013, she is associate professor in the computer science department of the University of Versailles in France. Her research interest lies mainly in the cryptanalysis of symmetric key primitives and the study of the Boolean functions for cryptography. Now I request Dr. Bora to share your screen and start your presentation. Yes. Her title of his speech is New MILP Modeling for Symmetric Key Primitives. That is based on basically the mixture of linear integer programming. So, Christina, please you share and start your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. So actually, I will try to share myself the screen if it's possible, because I think I know how to do it. So because now I will try to do it myself. If this is fine, okay.
Prem.
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Hello, Prem.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. It is visible from your side.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I start now?
Okay. You start.
Okay, so thank you very much. So thank you very much for the introduction, and also thank you very much for inviting me. So my talk will be a little bit more technical than the other ones. I hope this is not a problem. So I'm going to present some recent work about how we evaluate security for symmetric cryptography. And this is a joint work with Daniel Kodja, that is a PhD student in INRIA, France. And so as I was not sure about what people that are listening know about symmetric cryptography, I decided to make a long and smooth introduction into it. And then only at the end, I will go into the main subject. So as you, I guess, all know, so symmetric cryptography is this type of cryptography where the same key is used for encryption and decryption. And the main advantage of it is that it's speed. Actually, symmetric cryptographic algorithms are very fast, and they can have also very compact implementations, both in software and hardware. That's why they're very important, and they are it's a domain that is developing continuous, and we have a lot of contents to find new primitives. So there are a lot of families of symmetric algorithms. I have noted here the most important ones. But for this presentation, I will present everything through block ciphers. However, the techniques also applied to some extent to the other primitives. So a block cipher is an encryption algorithm that encrypts data block per block. That means that if we want to encrypt a long message M, we cut it in blocks of equal length and then proceed through this function, that is the block cipher, each block independently. So the question is how we design this function. And for all block cipher that we know today, this function is constructed in an iterated way. That means that we design, instead of making a big permutation, we just design a small function that we call the round function and then iterate it several times to get security. So there are several techniques on how to design this round function, but a very popular one, and on which, for example, the AES, the current standard, is based, is to use what we call a substitution permutation network, or SPN. So in this construction, the round function has three distinct layers. The first one is called the key addition. So we just introduce a subkey into the state by typically just a simple XOR. And then we have two layers, a nonlinear one and a linear one. So in an SPM cipher, the nonlinear layer is made of the parallel application of a small function that we call SBox, and that is very important. I will talk later about it. And so it's a small function that is repeated in parallel through the states. When this is done, then we apply a linear layer to provide diffusion. And this is one round, so we repeat it several times to get the whole cipher. So as I said, security actually depends a lot on the quality of the small functions. I will talk a little bit more about it. So an SBox is, so as I said, a small function. It takes as input some few bits and outputs also few bits. So it has several representations. Mathematically, we can see it, for example, as a vectorial Boolean function. So we can study mathematical properties in this way, for example, but for implementation reasons, we typically see it through its table. So as you see here. So for example, this is the table of the 4-bit SBox used in the block cipher present. That is a very popular cipher that I will talk a lot about it in my examples because it's a standard for lightweight cryptography. So typically, the input and the output can be different, but in practice, they're always the same because we want SBox to be permutations. So in order to not avoid some biases. And the most popular values, so we have values range from 3 to 8 bits, but the most popular values are 4 and 8 because it's convenient to put them inside microprocessor words that are 32 or 64 bits. Okay, and why it is important, the small component, because an SBox is usually the only nonlinear component of the cipher, so the security actually heavily depends, of the whole cipher heavily depends on the properties of this small function. And we will see it through attacks. So we'll talk a little bit about security. So when we design a block cipher, what is common to do is to ensure that this block cipher will resist all state-of-the-art attacks. So during the years, different attacks, linear, differential, boomerang, there are a lot of them have been developed. And so when we design a cipher, we should provide a kind of assurance, a kind of proof that our new cipher will be resistant to all these attacks. So a very popular attack that was one of the first to be presented on block ciphers is a differential cryptanalysis that appeared at least publicly in the 90s, so by Biham and Shamir. The idea of this attack is that you encrypt pair of messages that differ by difference alpha. So you encrypt both X and X plus alpha, and then you go through the cipher and you get the ciphertext. And you look at the difference of the ciphertext. As when we build block ciphers, we want them to look like ideal permutations, so don't have any particular properties, distinguishing properties. That means for an ideal function, if we have an input difference alpha, then it should go to a concrete output difference beta with a probability 1 to the 2 to the n, where n is the block size. So if for our concrete cipher, we manage to find a couple of input-output differences that hold with a bigger probability than this, then we say that we have a distinguisher. That means we can distinguish our block cipher from an ideal function, and then we can probably also use it to build a key recovery attack. And this is, of course, very bad. So we have to provide an assurance that our block cipher will resist all attacks, and especially this differential cryptanalysis. And to do this, we will use the differential properties of the small function that we define, the SBox. So how do we do this? So the small SBox, we can from it build a table that we call the difference distribution table, or DDT. This will be very important for the next of my talk. And what does it have inside this table? So this example is for an SBox of size n equals to 3, so only 3 bits. So here we have 2 to the n, so 8 rows that correspond to input differences, and the columns correspond to output differences. And inside, the coefficients are the number of solutions to these equations. So if I encrypt x3 through the S box, x and x plus alpha, how many times I get beta solution. So when you see dots here, this actually corresponds to zeros. So that means that if we have a zero, that means that, for example, the input difference alpha never goes to the output difference zero when you through this S box. And then we call this impossible transitions, and the other ones we call them possible. So an important quantity is also for the S box is the maximal differential probability. So what is this? It's just we look at this table and we take the maximum value. So here it's always the same, it's 2. So 8, it doesn't count as the trivial one. So we look at the maximum non-trivial value and we divide it by the number of possible x, that is 2 to the 3, 8. And so we get the maximum probability, it's 1 to the 4. So this is very important quantity, and we will use it to evaluate the security of the whole cipher. So when we want to prove that there is no differential attack for our rounds of the cipher, we must actually try all input differences, look what they give as output differences, and compute the probability, and prove that this probability is actually very small and cannot be exploited. And so an important quantity for this is the number, what you call number of active S boxes. So for example, here we input a difference only on this bit. So we activate only this S box. The other S box have 0 input difference, no input difference. So they are in blue, and the active ones are in red. So then we propagate this difference through the different layers of the cipher, and we see which S boxes are activated. And this is important because the number of active S boxes will give us a success probability of any around differential attack. So we can say that any around differential attack can be bounded by this Pmax probability that was, you remember this one, depends on the S box, and this BR parameter that is the lower bound on the number of active S boxes. So this means that we have in some way to find this number, the lowest possible number of active S boxes, but this is difficult because this means that we have to try all possible input differences and then to see what happens. This takes time, and we don't know how to do this by hand. It's very complicated, especially for real world ciphers. So the idea, and what it was proposed in 2011, is that this concrete problem, we can write it down as an optimization problem by using what we call a mixed integer linear programming. So a mixed integer linear programming problem is a kind of optimization problem that can be written in a certain form. So we have an objective, that the objective is always to minimize or maximize a linear function. So it's important that it is linear, like for example, like here, under some constraints. And the constraints also have to be linear. Though the variables xi that are here can be integer, but also they can be real. So we have some integer, some real, or just 1 out of 2, it's okay. That's why it's called mixed integer and not only integer. But for cryptographic applications, typically all the variables are just Boolean. So they take 2 values, 0, 1. So here is a very, very small example of a MILP problem. Well, it's not a cryptographic one, it's just to understand how it works. So here in this example, you imagine we have only 2 variables, x1, x2, that we want them to be integer and positive. And we want to minimize this linear function minus x1 minus x2 to find its minimal value under these 2 constraints, linear constraints. And why it is interesting to write our problems as a MILP problem is that because there are a lot of, in industry, there are a lot of problems that can be written under this form. So that means that through the years, many commercial solvers have been developed and they're accessible to everyone. So there are many good solvers. There are Groby one, that what we use, but there are also the CPLX one, and actually there are tens of them. So you can choose like your favorite solver. And they can handle big problems with 100 or 1,000 variables and constraints. So it's very interesting for us to be able to write a cryptographic problem as a MILP problem and then use the solver to solve it. It's not the only way to do this. There are other like optimization techniques that can be used. So for example, like constraint programming, for example. But in symmetric cryptography, people like a lot MILP, probably because the solvers are more powerful. So we came back to now to 2011 and the problem of finding the minimum number of active S boxes. And what was proposed there are two initial papers by two different, independently, by two different group of researchers. And they proposed, they did it through the AES, the actual standard. So they proposed to use MILP to find the minimum number of active X boxes. So for this, just recall the AES, so it has a state of 16 bytes, seems like 4 times 4 matrix. And they propose to use a binary variable for every byte of the states. The binary variable would only say if this word, this byte is active or inactive, so 1 or 0. And this corresponds actually to the S boxes, because S boxes also apply to words of the state. So if the word is active before the S box, it will also be after the S box. So this will help to count the number of active S boxes by just, so our objective function will be to minimize, because we want to find a lower number of active S boxes, to minimize this sum of Xi's, because we, so for the first round, we have 16 variables, one for each word, and then for the other round, another 16, and etc. So we want to count how many active S boxes we have. So this is what we want to minimize. And for this, of course, we have to write propagation rules through the different layers of the cipher. So the non-linear layer, the linear layer, etc. I will not explain this here. We don't have time, but it's not very complicated to do. So this was the first approach to do this, what we call word-wise. So because we put a variable to each word and not to each bit. And this model was actually quite good for the beginning, because it was the number of variables that we need is low, like 100 or 200 variables. The propagation rules are simple to write. And so the system, it's very quick to solve. So solvers can handle it very nice. However, the problem is that we don't take the S box or the linear layers properties, particular properties into account. It's not very precise. So we don't get very tight bounds. Or if we search for an attack, because we can use also MILP to search for a new attack, then probably we'll miss it. So people started to move from word-wise model to bitwise models because they are more precise. And the bitwise models mean that we now assign a binary variable not to a word of the state, but to each particular bit. So propagation, and now rules become more complicated, right? Because we have to take into account exactly the properties of the S box and the linear layer. So the good thing is that if we manage to do this, then we get very precise results, very precise bounds. We will find probably accurate attacks, but it is very complicated to do so. So what from our work started from, so we started to analyze these bitwise models and try to find efficient ways to write propagation rules. So especially the first task we wanted to do is to write propagation rules through the S box, because this is complicated, and I'll explain how we do this. So as we saw before, for each S box, we associate the so-called difference distribution table, so the DDT. So we have the input differences, output differences, and here we see the possible or not possible propagations. So when we have here a dot, that means 0, that means the propagation is impossible. So if we search, for example, all the possible propagations for an S box, we want to write a linear system that will be verified by all possible propagations. So all possible differences X, Y, that we have here something that is not 0, and that will remove all impossible ones. So here the S box I use is a 3-bit S box. So we can see the input difference as 3 bits, and the output difference, we can write it as 3 bits. And so, for example, one can check, of course, you have more time, that this linear, linear, it's R linear, so for have real coefficients here, this R linear inequality is verified, satisfied by all points X, Y, but the 3 that I have in red here. So 3, 3, 3, 7, and 7, 3. So this corresponds to X and Y. Same thing, and this corresponds to impossible propagations. So same thing, I can write another now linear inequality that now will remove So we'll keep all points, but we'll remove 3. Here, here, this one, and this one. So I continue, and I can write down in total, finally, I write down 6 inequalities, and all possible propagations are satisfied by this system of 6 inequalities, but the impossible are not, because each impossible propagation is just removed by one of them. So this is how we do this is how we model an S-box for differential cryptanalysis. And of course, the question is, how do we find these linear equations? So this will be our main problem for the first part of the talk. And this problem, we can divide it in 2 subproblems. So the first one, which we will call from now on problem 1, is how to generate a correct set of linear inequalities that will model a DDT. This is what exactly we did. So it's very satisfied from the possible transitions, and the impossible are just kicked out. So this is just find a method that generate like a lot of them. And the problem 2, that is an optimization problem, among all these that are generated in the first phase, how to choose a representative set that is probably a smaller one that still correct represents a DDT. So why do we need this phase? Because we can always find like nice ways to represent with inequalities the DDT, but if we have like 10,000 of them, then the MILP solver will not be able to solve the problem after this. So we have to find like a way to choose among them. I will talk about this later. So for now on, we will concentrate on problem 1. So methods to generate for a given S-box correct inequalities. And in 2014, so there was 2 nice papers by Sun et al. That did this, so propose solutions to problem 1. They did propose 2 different approaches, a geometrical and more a logical one. So I'll explain them here. So the first one was called the Convex Hall method. So suppose you have, as always, an S-box, and every entry, input difference, output difference in the S-box, we can embed them to the real numbers. So we can see it. See here you have the bit decomposition. You can see it as a vector in R to the 2n. And once we do this, then we can compute the in this picture you can see, for example, here, imagine that the points in white are the impossible transitions and the points in red are the possible ones. So what you want is to write a system of inequalities that will keep all the red ones and will kick out all the white ones. So how can we do this? Once we have this set, we can compute the convex hull of the set, that is the smallest convex set that contains it. And in particular, we can compute the H representation of the convex hull. That means that it will give us these inequalities, these border inequalities. So, and this, the H representation gives us exactly a set of inequalities for the set. So it was a very nice method. And what is nice about it, that there are already some computer algebra programs that can do this for us. For example, Sage can compute the H representation for a small S-box. So this is what they did. So this was the first approach they proposed. And the second approach they proposed is to use what we call the logical condition modeling. And it works this way. So imagine you have an impossible transition, A, so through the DDT. Then you can write an inequality, and this is an inequality you have to write, that will keep inside all other points, but will remove only this one, this impossible. So for example, is your impossible transition, it's like 0.16. So this is X, this is Y. Then this inequality, you can check that it will keep all points inside, but will remove only this one. So now you have a method, you can do it for every individual point, and you have now a big system of linear inequalities. And this gives you a system that will keep all possible transitions, but will kick out all the impossible ones. So these were very nice methods that were proposed, but they have also some disadvantages. And that is the main disadvantage. They worked very well for small S boxes. When I say small is up to 5 bits, but they were not efficient at all for modeling big S boxes, like, for example, 80-bit S boxes. And there are a lot of ciphers that use 8-bit S boxes. For example, the AES cipher used one, so it could not be used for AES. And why this? Well, the first method, the one that depends on the convex hull, it is because computing the convex hull it's a computationally hard problem that grows exponentially with the number of bits of the S box. So it is not possible to do this for 80-bit S boxes, or for 7, it's already too high. And the second method can always be applied, but it will give us, as it only gives one inequality per point, the number of inequalities will be too high. So to give you an idea, I give you here 2 ciphers that use 8-bit S boxes. So the one is AS, and the other one is Skinny 128. So Skinny is a very popular cipher. It's quite new. It's since 2016, but it has become very popular and has now been used as the underlying cipher for other constructions, and is a candidate for the ongoing NIST competition. So it's also an SPN cipher and is lightweight. So to give you an idea for the AES box, if you look at its DDT, so difference distribution table, there will be inside 3,300 impossible transitions, and for Skinny there will be even more. And so if you have a system with 33,000 inequalities, this is just not efficient for any solver. So this is why these methods were good. They were the first one, but they didn't work for big S boxes. So a first solution to this big S box problem was provided later in 2017 by researchers from so many countries. So there was Abdel Khalek, so there also Yosuke Todo and Yu Sasaki and other researchers. And so I will not go into detail, but what they noticed is that the problem of searching for good inequalities for 8-bit S boxes can be seen as a problem of a classical Boolean function problem, as a problem of minimizing the product of some representation. And what is good to have and see this is that there exist already algorithms to do this second task. And one of the algorithms is the Quinn-McCluskey, or we'll call it a QM algorithm. So they use it exactly to solve like this first problem. And it worked. So they've managed for the first time to find nice representations for big S boxes. It worked particularly well for Skinny, where the number of inequalities they found, it was very low. So there are 5,400,000 impossible transitions, and they only managed to represent it with 372 inequalities. So this was very good. But for AES, it didn't work as well, because, well, they did it not with QM algorithm, because the problem of it is that it has very high memory resources and can be very slow. So it didn't work for AES, but they used some heuristic algorithm that have similar results. It's called Espresso. And so they managed to solve the problem, but still you see here that the number of inequalities they got was quite high. So what we try to do with, in this work with Daniel, is to try to go lower this number and to find new ways of representing 8-bit S boxes. So new ways that could be actually efficient and that could use this representation in practice for cryptanalysis reason or for designers to prove some bounds for their new designs. Okay, so I think I will not go through this. So I will start directly with with what we did. And we'll present, so we have for our contribution in this paper is that we have proposed different mathematical methods for modeling large S boxes that actually are quite efficient and work very well for AES and other ciphers. And at the second step, even if I didn't talk about it in the introduction, is that we also did some work to provide better modelings for linear layers. Because even if non-linear layers are like very expensive, as we will see, linear layers can be very expensive to represent also. So that it will be, this will be in the second step. So let's go now to see what we did for this large S box representation. So we have 3 different methods, and I will start for the first one, and the first one actually is, so it looks like complicated, but it's not. We just took the convex hull technique that was used in 2014, and we just improved it a little bit. So if you remember, the convex hull technique for that people used is that we take our set of possible inequalities and we compute the H representation of the convex hull. And this gives us already a set of inequalities to represent the function. But what we noticed is that if we use this initial set and we do some computation between these inequalities, we can actually get even better inequalities, in the sense that our new inequalities will remove a higher number of points than what was done with the initial ones. And the operation we did is just simple adding inequalities. It's not complicated. So if you have, for example, a point xy, so input difference, output difference, and it satisfies k inequalities, like of this type. If you add them, then it will also satisfy the sum of this. So we can add, in the sense, inequalities. So what we did is that, of course, if you can always do this, you can always take 2 inequalities, 3 inequalities, and add them. But most of the time, it does not give you something interesting, because let's see this figure here. So inside you have these possible transitions, outside there are impossible transitions. And here are the inequalities given by the H representation of the convex hull. So if you take 2 random inequalities and add them, you will get like this new constraint, this new linear inequality, but it will not be interesting because it just will be verified by all the points. So it doesn't give you something new. However, what we noticed is that if we add inequalities that share a vertex here, like for example here, then we get new inequalities that can be of interest, that can remove possibly a higher number of points at the initial one. So we will need less of them. And so we have an algorithm to do this, to correctly add k inequalities, but in practice, we only need to do this for k equals to 2 or 3, so it's not very expensive and it's very efficient, and to have good results. So here is a table of, we did this for different ciphers. So for 4-bit ciphers, there are a lot of them, of the ciphers, they all use different S boxes. So we computed their representation through this method with our method for all these S boxes and compare them to what was previously done. So this is the work from Sam et al. In 2014, and this is the minimum number for representing the S box that got Sasaki and Todo in a paper in 2017. And here you can see our results in bold, and as you can see, we improve for all the S boxes. And this is quite important because the S boxes, there are a lot of them in each round, and you have several rounds. So even if you like gain 4 inequalities, you gain like 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. So in total, you gain a lot. And so this method actually works up to 6 bits. So but the problem is still that it is good, it works very well, but up to 6 bits. So for 8-bit S box, it does not provide any solution because, as you remember, the first step was to compute the convex hull. And the convex hull for 7 or 8 bits, we cannot compute it anymore, at least with today computers. So we had to think of something else. So we developed another method that we called the Precu method. So I will explain what is it. This is a method that permits us to remove with a single inequality spaces, so affine space of a special form. So for this, I will need some few notations that are not very complicated. So if you have a binary vector u with m coordinates, I will need to note, like with the support of u will be all the coordinates at which we have a 1. So it's 0, 1. So we just need the coordinates for, we had 1. This is what we call the support. And the set Precu, it's composed of all vectors x of the space that are smaller than u, and smaller is in the sense that smaller coordinate per coordinate. So all coordinates xi are smaller than the corresponding coordinates ui. So for example, if u is a vector 0, 1, 1, 0, then the Precu set is composed of these 4 vectors, because how many vectors, it depends on how many, the size of the support. So it's 2 to the size of the support. And so our goal, it will be to derive a single inequality to remove whole spaces of this form. And so I will not give any proof for this. If of course you're interested, I can forward you the paper. But the idea is that you have 2 vectors A and AU that have disjoint support, and you compute I, it is the indices, so it is integers, that will be all possible indices, but you remove those that are in the support of A and the support of U. And then you get this nice inequality that says that this inequality that depends on the Hamming weight of A. So Hamming weight of A, it's a number of ones in the vector A. It's verified by everyone, but not the points in the space. So we have removed the whole space. So let's see a quick example on the S box of present. That's a 4-bit S box. So we choose A to be this vector 0, 1 input out difference, output difference, and U to be this vector 9, 4. Then we compute the Precu space. It has this has Hamming weight of 3. We have 2 to the 3 8 vectors inside. These 8 vectors. The support of A is 4. Support of U is 0, 3, 6. And I here will be what remains. So we remove 0, 3, 4, 6, and we have the rest. So now the inequality is easy to get. You put plus xi for all the I here, and minus xi for the xi in the support of A. And as the Hamming weight of A is 1, 1 minus the Hamming weight is 0, so you get this inequality. And this removes at once, a simple inequality removes at once all this big space. And you can do it for like spaces of any length. So we get nice inequalities, and we don't need a lot of them. Don't have time to talk in the details on this, but after have discovered like this method, we find out that actually it's kind of equivalent to the Quinn-McCluskey algorithm. So it gives probably roughly the main results, but our method is more efficient because it's more memory efficient and it takes less time. So it still has an advantage because we can compute it. QM algorithm, we cannot always run it for big S boxes, but it does not give as good results as was expected in the beginning. So we have also a third method, and this is what worked the best for us. And this method, it's based on another geometrical representation that we will call balls. So a ball of center C and radius D will be just a center with a ball. We'll have inside all points that have a Hamming distance of D from the center. So in this example, we have a ball that is centered in this point. So M here is 4, so 4 coordinates. And all these points differ in 1 coordinate from the center. So we have 5 points. And another notion that I'm going to need is the notion of distorted balls. That is, will be like you see here, is like balls where we have inside like all points, but we remove 2 points from the edge. So here are the blue points, we remove them. So we have only these 3 points. And what is interesting with this representation is that all these 5 points can be removed also by a single inequality. So we can have this ball and we remove all these points with a single inequality. So for example, this is an inequality that removes all these 5 points. And this we can generalize it easily to any radius D. So we can have big balls of like here it's D equals to 2, but we can generalize it to any D. And we can have a single inequality where it removes all points in the ball. So this is nice. However, the problem is that if we applied it in a concrete DDT, it rarely works for real DDTs that are not sparse, for example, as the one of the block cipher present, because if we take a big ball, then you will have also possible transitions inside and you cannot remove them because then the system will not be correct. So you cannot do this for very large balls, but probably for small ones. And what also we can do is to use the distorted balls. And the distorted balls, that means that, okay, I want to remove all the ball, but not some possible transitions, for example, that are in the edge. So suppose here these are possible transitions, you want to keep them. So you will use that method that we have for disordered balls, that will write an inequality that removes all points, but not certain that you choose on the edge. So how we do this? I will just give an intuition. So you have this inequality that removes all points, but you now want to remove all points, but not this one and this one. So for example, compare it to the center. So it differs in the first coordinates. So you say, if I make the coefficient of the first coordinate a little bit higher, then this will keep my point inside. Because before, you see, if you put 0 everywhere, you have 1. It is smaller than 2, that the point is kicked out. But now you have increased its coefficient, so it's 2. So 2 greater or equal to 2, it's whole, so the point is inside. So this is the idea. You just play a little bit with the coefficients for the points you want to keep, and you manage to do this even for balls of bigger radius. So a last technique related to balls that we did, and this is the one that worked the best, is to take a collection of balls, like for example 3 balls distorted, from which some points on the edge are missing, and write a single inequality to remove all 3 of them. So this is a little bit technical, so I didn't write how we do this exactly, but we have a method. So we have equations and an algorithm for doing so. So in this example, you also use an example on present. So we have a ball centered on the point 0, 11. So we have all these points here. And then I take 2 other points that are inside, so 0, 15 and 0, 10, and I write the corresponding balls. So what is in red are some possible transactions that I have to be careful not to remove. And so what I do is, the idea is that I write an inequality for each ball. This I can do this, so we saw it. So, and then I kind of add them. It's not exactly adding, but it is similar. So I add them, and then it comes out that I can remove actually all points, but not the red one. And also the inconvenient is that I also have to kick out some points, like the blue one that I would like to keep, but I cannot, because otherwise the equations will not be correct. So it's not perfect, but actually it works, and it removes here, for example, we have a single inequality that removes at the same time 17 points. This is a lot. So just to see how our methods work in practice, so we applied it to 8-bit S boxes. So these were our goal, to manage to represent with not a lot of inequalities big S boxes. So for Skinny, already the Quinn-McCluskey algorithm that was the best reference before did a good job. So we managed to go this number a little bit down. So we have 302 inequalities, but it was not spectacular because already what they did before was good. But look at, for example, the EAS. So the previous result was 8,300 inequalities, and what it did is like 3 times less. And in practice, this counts because we write down, then we checked, we did have practical applications. So we did some cryptanalysis results. And in practice, with this one, we could not get results. With this one, we could. So in practice, it really works. And so I'm going to rapidly to the last part of my presentation. So I talked to you how we represent the S-box layer, but actually the linear layer, it's very important to have something optimized also. So it was our surprise in the beginning, because we thought, okay, S-box layer, it's a non-linear layer. Of course, it's complicated to represent it with linear inequalities, but linear layer, it should be okay. But actually, it's not okay at all. And the problem is that for cryptography, for symmetric cryptography, when we say linear, we mean F2 linear, so 0, 1. And MILP, it needs R linear, so with real numbers. And for example, the most simple operation for the linear layers are the XOR operation. So it's an exclusive OR. And this is the major linear operation we use. So all linear layers, symmetric, almost all of them, they use this operation. And actually, what we found out that it is the worst to model with MILP, because if we have a XOR U, XOR n variables, we prove, and the proof is not complicated, is that we need at least 2 to the n minus 1 R linear inequalities. And this is actually quite a lot. So we had to do something. So we had to think something better to do when we have a linear layer. And so in general, a linear layer is only represented so by my matrix M. So you just multiply what you have in the input by a matrix and then get the output. So for example, you have n inputs, x1, xn, you multiply them by the matrix M, you get a new vector. Now I will rewrite a little bit this equation and I will put this on the other side. So this is the same equation, but with this on the other side. So we have now this matrix A that we have on the left part, the matrix M, and on the right part, we have the identity matrix. And now we want this to be 0. So modeling matrix M is equivalent to modeling the kernel of this augmented, so this big matrix A. Of course, we can do it like with the XOR modeling that I show, but this is inefficient. So we have to do something better. And so we used a very simple result that says that if we have an invertible matrix P, actually modeling kernel A, it's the same as modeling the kernel of P times A. And this is for every invertible P. So we thought if we found, so this is equivalent. So if we manage to find some matrix P such that the number of the XORs needed, so the Hamming weight of the rows of the matrix A is lower, of this new matrix will be lower, then we'll need to do less XORs and it will be better. And this was our first idea, and we have an algorithm for doing this, so for searching for such a matrix P that just makes the Hamming weight of the rows lower. This is an example application again to Skinny. So Skinny uses a very simple binary matrix for diffusion. This is this one, the first part, and this is the identity matrix. Now, if you see, if we do a simple row operation, we take the first row, the last row, and we add it, then we give the first row changes, and it has smaller number of ones. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ones. Here we have only 1, 2, 3. And the number of ones correspond to the number of XORs we have to do. So it is important. So if we modelize this matrix, we have to model like for the first row 1, 2, 3, 4 XORs, so 2 to the 3 inequalities. So for the second row, 2 XORs, so 2 inequalities, sorry, and then etc. So we would need 18 inequalities, but with our new modeling, we only need 14. And in practice, this has an impact because the linear layer we repeat it several times. So, and we have many rounds for Skinny. So like there are 70 rounds. So in practice, it has an impact even if you just have 4 inequalities less. So a second method we thought is that, okay, so we did this part. So before our matrix to modelize was this one, so this is matrix A. And we found an invertible matrix P that modeling the kernel of this was better. But now we said, okay, we can also multiply from the other side and multiply from the right side. But now we don't multiply it by any matrix, but a block diagonal matrix, because it has to, how do we say, to compose with the XOR S-box layer. So we have blocks of the size of the S-box. So if we manage to find some matrix of this form Q, such that all this has rows of lower Hamming weight, then again, we can do a better job. So we also have an algorithm efficient for doing so, and we applied it to several ciphers. So here are the results. So there are some ciphers, for example, Midori or ARIA that are already optimal, and our algorithm did not improve the number of linear inequalities that we need. But for Skinny, we moved it from 18 to 14. For AES, so with the first algorithm, for the AES, the first algorithm didn't work, but the second one divided the number of linear inequalities by 2. Then for another cipher, an old cipher, it's called Anubis, we divided by 5 with the second algorithm. And for Saturnin, this is a new cipher that is submitted to the NIST competition. We managed it was 5,000 before, and we put it to 300. So it's an interesting techniques for these people that if someone wants to use them. And to conclude this talk, I will just show how in practice, so we did experiments in practice to see at which point our new modelings, when we put them in real MIL problems for cryptanalysis reasons, if they really have an impact on timing. And I will talk distantly for AES and Skinny. So first, the problem that we wanted to find is that you have an input difference, alpha, and after a rounds, you have some output difference. And we want to know if this input difference is possible or impossible. Possible means that we have to find a differential trail going from alpha to beta, and impossible means that we cannot find any. So we ran this problem for 5 rounds of AES and 32 rounds of Skinny. Well, because Skinny rounds are more lightweight, so that's the reason there are more of them. And so here are the results. So this is if we use the naive modelings for both SBox and linear layer. So we get this number of seconds in average. What is strange is that if we use now the improved linear layer for SBox, actually we get something worse, but this is like MILP. The problem is that there do a lot of heuristics inside, and it's very difficult to understand what happens because all the algorithms are proprietary, so it's not possible to understand what happens. So sometimes you have just like crazy things. So it's increases a little, but yeah, we don't understand why. But if now you keep the same linear layer, but they choose the SBox, you see that they have a big difference. And so if you combine both new linear layer, new SBox modeling, then you got something even better. And for Skinny, it's the inverse. So this is what happens if you use the basic modelings, so naive modelings. If you now use our new improved linear modeling, you have like divided by 10 the number of seconds you need, and the SBox does not change that much. So the reason we think that this happens is that for AES, the SBox was really big and we really improved this, so this have a big impact, while the number of rounds is small, 5 rounds, so the impact of linear layer is less visible. And for the Skinny, it's the inverse. We do not improve a lot the SBox layer because the previous modeling was already good, but after a lot of rounds, so linear layers applied a lot, so finally we have an important impact. So I will finish here. So there are other stuff also in the paper if you're interested, so please send me an email about this, and I presented everything through the spectrum of differential cryptanalysis, but of course it is this can also apply to linear cryptanalysis, boomerang cryptanalysis, and is much wider than what I presented. So yeah, so I will stop here. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello, Krishna. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
I have one question. If one bit change in the SBox, how many bits will be changed in the output of the SBox? Is there any relation?
It will be around half of them.
Oh, half, no? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. And how can check the security of the SBox?
So there are a lot of criteria that have been developed. So the one is the DDT that I told, that you have the numbers inside, they have to be low. So you must have always impossible, so you have transitions that are of low probability. But there are also other criteria for other attacks, as for linear attacks, boomerang attacks, algebraic attacks. So the algebraic degree has to be elevated, so big. So there are a combination of criteria. So when you design a new SBox, you have to take all this into account. And you also have to take into account implementation properties, because now we want lightweight ciphers. So you don't want a lot of multiplications and that thing, because it's complicated. So it's complicated to do a good SBox, and you have to take a lot of criteria into account.
So thank you very much for your nice presentation.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah. So you see, can you remember that Digha tour? Digha at West Bengal.
I'm sorry?
Hello. Can you remember that tour, Digha? You have visited that Digha tour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Of course, I remember. It was very, very nice. Of course, yes. Of course.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Sir, now I request you to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to share some few words for the speakers as well as participants.
Yeah. There's excellent. It was an excellent presentation. So very nice, these slides and very nice way of explanation. It was very much engaging, and I believe this all the participants here they have liked it. They have enjoyed your presentation. Thank you very much, Dr.
Yes, please share my slides. So I have sent them to you. So please share them if everyone is interested.
I think that the participants they will like to get this all the presentation documents.
Yeah.
Professor Moitra, can I make a point?
Yeah, kindly.
Yeah, on behalf of this university, I'm inviting all these invited speakers to the campus as and when the flight operations restore, and Kashmir is a beautiful place. I think Christina can enjoy Kashmir. It is.
Thank you very much. Yeah, with pleasure. When it will be possible.
So Kashmir has a scenic beauty. It has a wonderful weather. So therefore, I can actually invite all these invited speakers to the campus, and we can have a kind of a one day program on the cybersecurity in the university. And this is an open invitation to Christina, to Professor Roy, to Saxena. So therefore, this was the last comment. I was actually impressed, although I'm not a person of the field and I'm not an expert, but as a common man, as I said earlier, every common man is actually a stakeholder in cybersecurity. So therefore, the responsibility on professionals like Dr. Christina, Dr. Roy, Dr. Saxena is huge. You are not going to escape that responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay. We are going to close this session, sir.
Dr. Giri,
who is there?
Dr. Giri, you can ask certain questions from the participants. On behalf of the participants, you can ask certain questions.
So they have not put any question. Can you, participants, can you have any question?
Questions, question answer.
Participants, can you have questions?
You check chat box and question answer. There are questions.
Sir, there is a question.
The questions are basically based on the cyber.
Question is there from Asif Iqbal Kwasua. What types of cyber attacks can happen to smart grids?
No, actually, that time the speaker was Dr. Saxena.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot answer to this question.
Because you see, that is the part of the Dr. Saxena. So any participant, you are having any questions?
Yes, sir. We have 4 people raising hand. Can we allow them to ask the question?
Questions.
Sir, Isha Musa Ibrahim. Isa Musa Ibrahim, please unmute your mic and ask the question. Isa Musa Ibrahim.
Unmute your mic.
Sir, one question is there in chat box. Just now somebody has written. Jafar Majid, that in case of IoT, some devices have very less processing power or memory. Which algorithms for encryption would you recommend?
So I would just recommend to, so now at this time there is an ongoing competition. That's an IST competition for lightweight ciphers. And I think the ciphers that will be the finalists of this competition, will win this competition, will be very good candidate for some devices. So for the moment, we have like a very good cipher for encryption, like the present cipher or the skinny one. That's what I talked a lot about in my talk. So these are good ciphers. And there are some that are also particular for low memory. And I think you should go to the site of the NIST competition and see the second round candidates. So there are nice ciphers, and you choose the one that you want. So there are several of them.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, ma'am, one more question is there from Paramita Chandra. How to strengthen the security of Google account?
I'm not sure this is for a question for me. So I think that was a question for the previous talk, because I'm not an expert in this.
Devashish Giri, sir, I think most probably maximum questions were for Saxena, sir, from the previous lecture.
Yeah.
Most of the Saxena, sir. Now already you have Saxena sir has given many answer of the questions. So anybody is having any questions? Any more questions from the audience, from the participants?
Isa Musa Ibrahim.
Isa, you tell.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Go. Put your question. Hello, put your question. Or we can put in chat box.
So there is a nice question. Yeah, I see from the question and answer session. Can I please answer it? So can I talk?
Hello, you tell.
The question is, since symmetric key algorithm broken many times, it is possible to use symmetric key now also?
Yeah, so it's a very nice question. And actually, it's not true that symmetric algorithms are broken all the time. So of course, there are a lot of them that are getting designed and a lot of them that are getting broken. But the ones that go through the important competition, like the NIST one, for example, they were evaluated for a lot of years by different people. And there are a lot of them that are still secure. For example, the AES cipher is not broken and it's there like for 20 years. And so you can safely use it. And so there are other present cipher is not broken. There are a lot of ciphers actually that are there for many years that are not broken. So my recommendation is do not trust any cipher that has not gone through a lot of cryptanalysis and that is just very recent. But for ciphers that are issued from competition and you know there are a lot of years of cryptanalysis, you can safely use them for, I mean, at least 20 years.
So another question is there. Can we apply Laplace transformation for solving the cryptographic security?
I'm not sure to understand this question actually.
Hello. One question is there. Can we apply Laplace transformation for solving cryptographic security?
Sorry, I read the question, but I don't understand. I don't understand what it means actually. I don't see. So I don't have an answer to it.
Because you see, in general, we select some algorithm so that it can hard to break the systems. So that is say discrete logarithm problem, factorization problem. Laplace transformation, if you use, we do not know even that can be secure or not. Isn't?
No, sorry, I don't get it. I don't understand now.
So another question is there. Are S-box quantum safe?
Yes. So what we know today is that in the case that a quantum computer will be there, there will not be a major threat for symmetric key cryptography, because what will happen is that because think of the Simon algorithm, we just have to divide increase the key length by 2. So for example, if today 128 bits it's safe, then we have to take keys of 256. But current algorithms like AES and others will be safe after if so of course there are a lot of research, some attacks maybe get better, but globally symmetric key algorithms and S-blocks that are used in them will be safe.
Okay. And another question is that how do we decrease the length of the key, keeping in mind to irrecoverability to the interceptor?
How do we decrease the length of the key?
How do we decrease the length of the key, keeping in mind irrecoverable to the interceptor? That means that not recoverable from the interceptor.
Okay, so I mean, we would do this to have like to make communication more quick. Why would it decrease the length of the key? So it makes it faster, right? So that's the reason. So if this is why we should do it, to make the system faster, we have to make it. It's very complicated. We have to take a lot of. So we will have less rounds, and we have to launch a lot of analysis to see to prove that our system with the smaller key will still be secure. But we have to be very careful when doing this, because this can lead to disasters. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
And another question is that with the help of quantum computing power, is it not possible to check any password?
I'm not sure that this is for me also the question. I think it will be quicker, right? So yeah, this is related to exhaustive search. So I think it will be quicker. It will be like twice as faster. But still, if the password is very long, I think this will be okay, because it's like in the symmetric cryptography. The problem is that with a quantum computer, the exhaustive search will be twice as faster, but not more. So just have to take longer passwords, and this should be okay.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. There is no other question, sir. So thank you, Christian.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you see, I want to say the participants that we are having the many webinars, and many reputed speakers are there from the India and abroad, from India, France, Belgium, Japan, Denmark, UK, Turkey, and China. Many speakers are there. So we are having the next webinar on the 14th August. Okay, so this is one announcement from our side. So thank you so much to the all participants. Thank you our Honorable Vice Chancellor sir and the Vice Chancellor sir of the IOST. So now, which is for the participants, you can we are having some quiz. You put your answer of the quiz. The links are provided over there, and you will get the certificate from the link. So thank you very much to everybody. Now we are going to close this session.
Yeah. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Christian. Goodbye. See you.
Sir, with your kind approval, I am sharing the links for the participants. So for all participants, please note down the links, and this link contains a quiz link. From the you have to participate on the quiz, and after that you have to fill the feedback, and after giving the feedback, you will be having a certificate that will be uploaded after 2 hours after giving your quiz. The quiz forum will be open for half an hour. So please note down the link for the quiz and feedback and certificate link also. And we have a discussion forum link, and it is also displayed in the screen. And we have a YouTube link for this this lecture session, and it is available in the YouTube. You can watch the videos later on also. And we have uploaded the slideshows of our eminent speakers in the certificate link. And please note down the links. We will be the closing session within 2 minutes. We have posted all the links in the chat box also. Sir, is the link visible?
Yes.
Okay. Request to all participants to kindly take the screenshot or take the note of the links. We will be closing the session. If you have any questions or query, you can mail us. Our mail ID is for all participants. We want to make some small notification that all the webinars and upcoming webinars are being posted in the MAKAUT official Facebook page. So if possible, you just follow our Facebook page of MAKAUT. Thank you. Yes, this certificate links contains the link from where you can download the certificate, but the certificates will be downloaded after 2 hours. After giving the quiz, there will be some assessment. Depending upon the assessment, the certificate will be released after 2 hours. So kindly give the quiz and wait for 2 hours.
Sir, Siddiqui sir. So now we are going. Can you share your views? Now we are going to close.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Giri, sir.
Because you see, now we can close, isn't it? Siddiqui sir is talking to somebody else probably. Sir,
Yes, sir.
Siddiqui
Yes, sir. I have posted all the links in the chat box also.
Okay.
And I'm now closing the session, sir. So because we have one more webinar at 3 p.m.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Participants, please take note of the links. We are closing the session.